More civilizational collapse? Yeah. It's one of those days, I'm afraid. It really is. You're... Hello, Ian. Don't call me by my slave name. Call me Vosh. What's up, guys? Why late? I'm 2 minutes early. Actually. No nuts, Linkit. Oh, yeah. Did you do something with your hair? Yes, I got a haircut a week ago. That was mad audible. I've done better. Gay shirt. It's a denim work shirt. Though it does have a selvedge finish, which I think is delightful. It was made in a shuttle loom. Isn't that cute for a shirt? Difficult to find that these days. That tank top, though? Yeah, I need to buy it one size down. It's a little bit loose on me. Now that I've lost 1/4 of 1 pound of water weight. Or something. Type shit. Someone in chat earlier thought it was salvage denim. Hey, that's a good look, too. A lot of brands run with that, you know? They run with the, like, reclaimed, like you cut up some old jeans and just sort of stitch it together. You can do good stuff with that. Different fade patterns. Not mine, though. I'd recommend Freenote cloth. Oh, sure, Sticks15, aka White Name. Would you like to recommend me the $350 it would take to buy anything from that store? Freenote cloth. Oh, I would love to. No, please, please. Since you're so interested in me obtaining some. Your taste is on point. It's a good brand. MF doesn't act their sub tier. That's true. Okay. It's getting crazy out there. Welcome to breaking news. From the Department of Homeland Security, Harvard is being held accountable for collaboration with the Chinese Communist Party, fostering violence, anti-Semitism, and pro-terrorist conduct from its students on its campus. They have lost their student and exchange visitor program certification as a result of their failure to adhere to the law. Let this serve as a warning to all universities and academic institutions across the country. Enormous escalation from the Department of Homeland Security. Essentially, Harvard no longer has the ability to accept international students, and any international students that are currently staying there will have to transfer to other universities. It's something like 30% of their student body. Secretary Noem's letter to Harvard. Is it? Maureen Martin? Okay, yeah. I'm writing to inform you that effective immediately, Harvard University Student and Exchange Visitor Program certification is revoked. As I explained to you, hold on. I thought Trump was done dick riding Israel. Well, yeah, but the support for Israel from the administration has never been about Israel. It's always been about having an excuse to crack down on left protesting. DHS is scared, huh? No, you should be scared, actually. As I explained to you in my April letter, it is a privilege to enroll foreign students, and it is also a privilege to employ aliens on campus. All universities must comply with Department of Homeland Security requirements, including reporting requirements under the Student Exchange Visitor Program regulations, to maintain this privilege. As a result of your refusal to comply with multiple requests to provide the Department of Homeland Security pertinent information while perpetuating an unsafe campus environment that is hostile to Jewish students, promotes pro-Hamas sympathies, and employs racist DEI policies, you have lost this privilege. This action should not surprise you and is the unfortunate result of Harvard's failure to comply with simple reporting requirements. On April 16th, I requested records pertaining to non-immigrant students enrolled at Harvard University, including information regarding misconduct and other offensive that would render foreign students inadmissible or removable. Consequences must follow to send a clear signal to Harvard and all universities that want to enjoy the privilege of enrolling foreign students. If Harvard would like the opportunity of regaining student and exchange visitor program certification before the upcoming academic school year, you must provide all of the information following requested below within 72 hours. Any and all records, whether official or informal, in the possession of Harvard U, including electronic records and audio or video footage regarding illegal activity, whether on or off campus, by a non-immigrant student enrolled in Harvard University within the last 5 years, regarding any dangerous or violent activity on or off campus within the last 5 years, any threats to other students or university personnel, whether on or off campus, within the last 5 years, regarding deprivation of rights within the last 5 years, disciplinary records within the last 5 years, and of any protest activity involving a non-immigrant student on a Harvard University campus in the last 5 years. Any protest activity. So, you know, obviously this is impossible to follow. 72 hours, 72 days wouldn't be enough time to assemble all this information and provide it to the DHS. It's not followable. Though what they've chosen to ask for, why are they targeting non-immigrant students? Because immigrant students are done. There's no point in targeting the immigrant students. They're done. They're going after the non-immigrants. They can snap their fingers and deal with the immigrant students. They've already done it. They've revoked what'll happen to these students? Well, they have to transfer to a different school now or go home. God, I hope there's some kind of judicial recourse. Yeah, well, Harvard says they're going to fight it in court, but I don't know how much that's going to do. They have the best lawyers, and the Federalist Society likes them more than they like Trump. Yeah, just keep in mind that the goal of this administration is to make the judiciary irrelevant. Did the international students get their tuition back? Probably not. I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't know. There might be some like variance there, but my guess would be like probably not. Generally, these are wealthy students if they're immigrants, you know, coming in for Harvard. Not so much concerned about their financial status. If anything, the lack of their tuition it means they can no longer subsidize the poorer American students who go over. But then there's also the whole like fascism thing. It's pretty bad.
The Trump administration says today it will now block Harvard University from enrolling international students.
The government is revoking a certificate that allows the university to take in students from abroad. In a letter, the government also says in part that all international students must, quote, transfer from Harvard to maintain their non-immigrant status.
Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton, who's been trying to track this very quickly. Antonia, this is just developing, so details are sort of limited, but this is like the next chapter of a saga that's been going on between Harvard and the administration.
We love self-induced brain drain. Yeah, in addition to what this represents for like the future of America, I guess, and like the you know, unitary executive theory and the crackdown on left protesting and everything like that, one of the big things worth thinking about in the long run is that this country internationally is like beyond cooked. So much of our power and our prestige and our influence internationally stems from the dominance of our educational system. you know, people coming over to our universities and such. It's insane. Like this, it's just, it marks a new era, one in which we've like self-destructed essentially for nothing. Wait, I think I thought non-immigrant referred to students on a temporary visa. I think you're right. I think you're right. Because if you come over on a student visa, that's a non-immigrant visa, right? Yes, I think you're correct. Yes. My apologies. So what they're talking about here at the end, non-immigrant student, the reason for that caveat is because technically if you're here in a student visa, you're not an immigrant. Like the expectation is that you're here to be a student, but you're not immigrating to the United States. Yeah, not any kind of like permanent residence or work residence or anything like that. Okay, yeah, thank you. Thank you for that correction. Yes.
That's right. Harvard, of course, is suing the administration over the efforts we've seen over these last several months for them to basically demand kinds of data from the school, ask for ability to make changes to programming, hiring, and firing decisions in certain departments in the university. Harvard University's president, Alan Garber, balked at all of that. That's why this lawsuit is in place. And they've basically lost $2.2 billion of critical research and medical funding. So that's the backdrop here. So this is an escalation. And I just want to spell out what this means. So this is going to mean that in the next school year, international students are not able to come to Harvard University.
But many of them easily get jobs in the U.S. and get fast-tracked into green cards, especially in demand fields like STEM. Yeah, that's a good thing. That's like a sign of American power. Like that's good. Like wealthy, like children of wealthy families from all over the world travel to the United States, so their best and brightest get education here and then get jobs in America and contribute to our economy and our development. Like that's a good thing. Like the brain, to be clear, brain drain is bad for the countries from which the brains are being drained. It's not bad for the country the brains are coming over to.
And that's about 27% of the campus undergraduate life. And they pay full price. So who this is actually going to hurt? All of the marginalized and underprivileged Americans who depend on financial aid. When I was back in, about 10 years ago, Harvard had about 60% of undergraduates depended on some level of financial aid. So that gives you a sense of the scope and how many people will be impacted if the money and the support from this program is lost, which it looks like it has been.
And you're previewing next year, but let's talk about the now. What is Harvard saying? And what about international students who are there on campus right now?
Well, Harvard has already released a statement calling this unlawful. I'll read a bit from the statement. The government's action is unlawful. We are fully committed to maintaining Harvard's ability to host our international students and scholars. This retaliatory action threatens serious harm to the Harvard community and our country. And what they're saying here is that this is, of course, a fight for Harvard, but really it's a fight about higher education in the United States. Harvard has consistently made the argument that what's happening there could come to other universities. The
reason they're focusing on Harvard from the get-go is that Harvard is the legal center of the United States, like from not just with the alumni or just its education, but culturally, it's the center of law in the United States. It's a part of the same process that they used when they broke the backs of those legal agencies and blackmailed them into giving a quid pro quo, or sorry, to free work for the Trump administration. The quid pro quo being that they no longer had the executive orders, you know, preventing them from working in the capacity of the federal government. What about Yale? Well, Yale has less of a, I guess, like immediately considered activist culture that they can use as an excuse. But don't worry, like this applies broadly. What they're doing to Harvard right now is meant to be like a targeted strike at what is considered the center of academia. Also, no offense to Yale heads, but great offense to Yale heads. Everyone knows that Harvard's the center of the Ivy League like circuit. We all know that. Like it doesn't matter what your outcomes or results are. It's because Harvard's Harvard. It's a cultural thing. It's like it's an effort to swiftly strike and decapitate like a source of potential future opposition and current opposition to the Trump regime.
Very soon, but there are international students waiting for their graduation day in just a couple days right now. With this system being revoked, technically, what students are telling me they're fearful could happen. DHS agents, ICE agents could come to the campus if they do not leave and go back to their home countries in the next couple days, and they could essentially go through what we've seen happen to students in other campuses across the country over the last couple months. That's a real fear on Harvard's campus right now, and a real part of the question that we're still trying to get answers to about how all of this is actually going to be enacted.
Because they're here on student visas.
They're here on student visas that now are no longer valid.
All right. All right. Antonia Hilton, I know you'll continue to watch it for us. Thank you.
It's pretty bad, man. I want to see the full Harvard statement. Oh, it seems the Harvard statement wasn't that much longer than what we saw in the MSNBC video. Well, whatever. Intellectuals are punished under fascism. Yeah, I mean, it's not as though Harvard as an institution is meaningfully anti-Trump. You know, it's more just like cutting things off before they can do anything. Oh, there we go. Okay. I guess what I saw from the NPR blurb was another summary. Could never ask anyone from Harvard to be, you know, curt with their writing. Can Harvard ignore this? I mean, you can, like, ignore the demands of a police officer and see how it works out for you. Can a judge block the invocation of that rule? Yeah, but the Trump administration isn't really listening to the judges, so... Is the CCP shit just for comical fear-mongering? Yes. Dear members of the Harvard community, over the course of the past week, the federal government has taken several actions following Harvard's refusal to comply with its illegal demands. Although some members of the administration have said their April 11th letter was sent by mistake, other statements their actions may seem otherwise. Freezing of funding, freezing of grants, considering revocation of Harvard's tax-exempt status. The consequences of the government's overreach. It is really difficult to be sympathetic for Harvard at all because they're so evil, along with basically all higher education. But obviously, this is very much like a lesser evil situation here, you know. Severe and long-lasting research the government has put in jeopardy includes efforts to improve the prospects of children who survive cancer, to understand at the molecular level how cancer spreads throughout the body, to predict the spread of infectious disease outbreaks, to ease the pain of soldiers wounded in the battlefield. Sclerosis, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease are on the horizon. Heartbreak of illnesses. Eesh. The government has cited the university's response to anti-Semitism as a justification for its unlawful action. As a Jew and as an American, I know very well there are valid concerns about rising anti-Semitism. To address it effectively requires understanding, intention, and vigilance. Harvard takes that work seriously. This is one of the, like, again, it's so difficult to side with them when higher education, almost across the board, fully bought into the right-wing narrative that the anti-genocide protesters represented a threat to Jewish students and faculty. Right? Like, Harvard wasn't as complicit as, say, the Columbia administration, but overwhelmingly, like, there was that shared lie across the board. Obviously, there is a rise in anti-Semitism. It's just coming from the fucking Nazis, who recently wrote them a letter from the Office of the Department of Homeland Security. Like, but by continuing to play into that narrative, you really give the administration a lot of pretext. April 11th demands seek to control who we hire and what we teach, stand for the values that have made American higher education abroad, yeah. We will also soon release the reports of the Task Force in Combating Anti-Semitism and Anti-Israeli Violence, or Anti-Israeli Bias, and the Task Force in Combating Anti-Muslim, Anti-Arab, and Anti-Palestinian Bias. I love the false parallel here that anti-Israeli bias is like anti-Muslim, anti-Arab, or anti-Palestinian bias. You see, like even in this like nominally equal exploration, anti-Israel bias. Who the fuck cares if people are anti-Israel? It's a state. It's a nation. At least those are separate words. Yeah, I suppose so. Technically, it does say Israeli, not Israel. Yeah, but I do think that the inclusion of that at all really does. Like, again, can you, like, House of Un-American Activities Committee, right? We know what they're doing here. Like, we don't need to pretend. The conflation of Zionism and Judaism and, you know, so on and so forth. Like, we're familiar with this game strategy. They've been doing it for a long time. It's been very loud since October 7th. Anyway, we'll see. If we have anything even remotely resembling a functioning judiciary, Harvard will win this. That is to say, I have no idea if Harvard is going to win this. Absolutely no idea. The real result is just that no one's going to apply to U.S. schools in the future. I mean, no one's traveling over here. No one's traveling over here as it is, right? Like, already we have businesses that rely on tourism. They're all like screaming right now. Certainly up north near Canada, but also across the board. Why would anyone want to subject themselves to coming over to the United States right now? The risk you take. And a stat came out saying America is the only country on earth that expected lower tourism rates this year. Basically, every single metric for our economy is trending downward right now. But, you know, whatever. I'm glad we're rooting out these anti-genocide protesters. That's good, at least. Canadian Century, maybe. I'm holding on to China for now. We'll see how that goes. Okay. Speaking of higher education, did you guys see the discourse on Twitter about this one? This one's really fucking bleak. It's just a Substack article. It's not like a huge thing. College English majors can't read. They have one job, and they can't do it. The article just talks about what functional literacy looks like, and what the distributions are looking like. And just more and more, it seems like even English majors in university just aren't doing their damn jobs. Well, I didn't read the whole thing. I skimmed through it. It's just bleak. Give me a bit. Ooh, look at all those numbers. Look at all those words. To summarize even further for those skimming, hey, they knew I'd be here. 58% of students understood very little of the passages they read. 38% could understand about half the sentences. 5% could understand all 7 paragraphs. These are college students majoring in English. About half of them are English education majors, which means they will be teaching books like Bleak House to high school students after graduating. But they themselves cannot understand the literal meaning of the sentences in the opening paragraphs. What do we mean by they can't understand the sentences? It's best illustrated with an example. The original text says, "As much mud in the streets as if the water had but newly retired from the face of the earth, and it would not be wonderful to meet a megalosaurus, 40 feet long or so, waddling like an elephantine lizard up Holborn Hill." And the subject, after reading that and being asked to describe it, says, pause, laughs. So it's like, the mud was all in the streets, and so everything's been like kind of washed around, and we might find megalosaurus bones, but he's saying they're waddling, all up the hill. Chat GPT brain? Yeah, maybe. Gonna punch my ticket. I mean, that text was kind of annoying to read. Well, the article might be describing you, my friend. Wait, I don't understand that sentence. Yeah, when the article said a significant number of college English students can't like aren't functionally literate at that level, you're included in that, by the way. I'm sorry, did you think you were gonna get to oh, did you think that like you with your mind rotted by gotcha games, League of Legends and live streamers that you would be able to just effortlessly pass the bar that people who have gone to school in an English major can't clear? Come on. You sillies. The methodology is that an interviewer sits with each student on one-on-one and listens to them read passages from the book aloud. As the students read, they must translate what they read into modern English, explaining what each passage means. They have a dictionary and reference material, and phones on hand to assist in looking up any unfamiliar terms, such as Lord Chancellor. Ooh. That's rough. Michaelmas term lately over, and the Lord Chancellor sitting in Lincoln's Inn Hall. Implacable November weather. As much mud in the streets if the waters, we read that, Smoke lowering down from chimney pots, making a soft black drizzle with flakes of soot in it, as big as full-grown snowflakes. Gone into mourning, one might imagine, for the death of the sun. Dogs undistinguishable in mire. Horses scarcely better, splashed to their very blinkers. Foot passengers jostling one another's umbrellas, in a general infection of ill temper and losing their foothold at street corners, where tens of thousands of other foot passengers have been slipping and sliding since the day broke, if this day ever broke, adding new deposits to the crust upon crust of mud, sticking at those points tenaciously to the pavement and accumulating at compound interest. I don't think it's that difficult to parse at all. I think, I mean, I don't even think the prose is that purple. It seems pretty understandable to me, to be honest with you. It's muddy? Yeah, it's muddy. Yeah. Wait. On such an afternoon, if ever, the Lord High Chancellor ought to be sitting here, as here he is, with a foggy glory round his head, softly fenced in with crimson cloth and curtains, addressed by a large advocate with great whiskers, a little voice, and an interminable brief, and outwardly directing his contemplation to the lantern in the roof where he can see nothing but fog. And then the subject says, describing him in a room with an animal, I think? Great whiskers? Facilitator laughs. Subject, a cat? Again, these students had full use of dictionaries and even their phones when reading the passages. They were free to look up and search any terms they didn't recognize, but these resources did not help them understand the text. That's a lot of words to say not that much, Lamau. That's true. I think literature should be about conveying... Literature should be like the word equivalent of Soylent, where you get like the distilled, like the exact nutrients you need as efficiently as possible without any care for texture or taste. London. Michaelmas term lately over, and the Lord Chancellor sitting in Lincoln's Inn Hall. And the subject says, and I don't know what Lord Chancellor is. Some sort of person in authority, so that's probably what I'd go with. Sitting in Lincoln's Inn Hall, which would be like maybe a hotel or something. So 10-second pause. The student is clicking on her phone and breathing heavily. All right, that sounds a bit mean to include that. Okay, so Michaelmas term is the first academic term of the year. So Lincoln's Inn Hall is probably not a hotel, laughs. 16 seconds of breathing, chair creaking. Then she whispers, I'm just going to skip that. This is a little mean. Talk about the November weather. Mud in the streets, and I do probably need to look up Megalosaurus. Really? It ends with Saurus. Meet a Megalosaurus 40 feet long or so. It's probably some kind of animal or something. Or another that is... It is talking about encountering in the streets and walking like an elephantine lizard up Holborn Hill. So, yep, I think we've encountered some kind of animal these characters have met in the street. Yep, I think we've encountered some kind of animal these... Did they copy and paste the last bit here? Like, verbatim? Or did she repeat it verbatim? This is just a bullying anecdote. Most folks alive today would struggle with Dickens. Yeah, most people on Earth today are functionally illiterate. These are college English majors. Probably not like day one, freshmen, right? I mean, have you read Dickens? Fuck no, I'm illiterate. I've quoted the juiciest bits of student performance already, but you can read them all here, including the single example of a proficient reading in the original paper here. Yeesh. What does functionally illiterate mean? I mean, it depends on where you set the bar, and that's kind of what the article is about, right? The idea being that a lot of people have the literacy necessary to send and understand basic text messages, read signs, like peasant literacy. But in terms of understanding, like, literature, they can't. And that's true. I mean, have you talked to people, like, online? Have you been getting a good sense of people's literacy lately? We should probably look at test scores. Test scores are awful at determining this. One of the problems is that we never fail anyone. Missing some references is valid. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with not knowing the meaning of a word. That's why they have a dictionary and like references up. That's totally fine. If you've never encountered a word, I didn't know what Michaelmas meant until it was provided in a clarification in this article. That's not really like the literacy thing. It's more like the ability to parse the meaning of these more illustrative sentences, right? You're trying to be able to engage with language at a level of proficiency where you're not just capable of comprehending stuff at like the most basic rote level of description, where you're like, okay, I understand books as long as they just say what's happening. Don't get fancy with it. Just say what's happening. It's like, okay, I mean, that's... We fail people always? Not really, actually. There's like in American education, like there's a big push to not fail students because universities and high schools get, they lose funding when people get failed out. So people will get like subliterate retards will get like passed from one year on to another, No one gets held back anymore. There should be mass expulsion for AI use. Yes, but that's not what this is. This problem has been around for a little while longer than that. I mean, it's kind of like a creeping issue, I guess. Grading on a curve is part of the reason why. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, like sometimes you're just right or wrong, and if you're wrong too much. They don't read very well. A study of the reading comprehension skills of English majors at 2 Midwestern universities. Oh, is this older data? We conducted a reading test from January to April 2015. Oh, okay. We can't even... Oh, so it's probably gotten a lot worse then, right? We're not even talking about... No, wait. Is this really January to April 2015? Why do the research now? I don't know. Like I said before, I'm illiterate, so I can't read. They were eating green eggs and ham today. Hey, listen, okay? As long as they're getting through the classics. People in my class last year were complaining Gatsby was boring and couldn't understand it. Really? Gatsby? Look, okay, I understand being bored by like the Grapes of Wrath or something, but Gatsby is a... All right. Grapes of Wrath was fucking heavy, dog. Yeah, I'm just saying there were some points where I remember it dragging for me, but you know, I only read it in high school. My brain's very different now. Because problematic readers constituted 58% of the subjects in our study, we'll focus our discussion on this category. The majority of these subjects could understand very little of Bleak House and did not have effective reading tactics. All had so much trouble comprehending concrete detail in consecutive clauses and phrases that they could not link the meaning of one sentence to the next. Although it was clear these subjects did try to use various tactics while they read the passage, they were not able to use those tactics successfully. For example, 43% of the problematic readers tried to look up words they did not understand, but only 5% were able to look up the meaning of a word and place it back correctly into a sentence. The subjects frequently looked up a word they did not know, realized they did not understand the sentence the word had come from, and skipped translating the sentence altogether. Dickens' rhetorical style is, to say the least, unfamiliar, so entering his world entails making imaginative leaps and consistently thinking on a higher level. None of the subjects in the problematic category had the reading skills to meet this challenge. Although many could vaguely understand the focus of each of Dickens' descriptions, they saw the mud and fog, for example, they could not interpret the literal, concrete detail that composed each description. A special challenge for problematic readers was legal language and information. Often these readers were also too confused to recognize that Bleak House begins by focusing on a law court. 71% of the problematic readers had no idea Dickens was focusing on a court of law, a judge, and lawyers. Their misunderstanding happened even though Chancery, a specific type of English court where the head judge, the Lord Chancellor, and other judges would make decisions on legal trusts, divisions of property, the property of, quote, lunatics, and the guardians for infants and orphans, Chancery Division and Lincoln's Inn Hall. Well, we haven't read the relevant passage there, so that doesn't mean that much to us. Oh dear. The original text said, "Fog up the river, where it flows among green aits and meadows, fog down the river, where it rolls defiled among the tiers of shipping and the waterside pollutions of a great and dirty city." The subject says, "There's just fog everywhere." The text says, "Fog creeping into the cabooses of collier brigs, fog lying out in the field or in the yards, and hovering in the rigging of great ships, fog drooping on the gunwales of barges and small boats." And the facilitator says, "Okay, so what do you see in this sentence besides fog?" And the subject says, "I know there's train, and there's like the industrial part of the city." Oof. It's you ever get the feeling that it's all over, actually? Yeah, Masaigo, reading stuff like this does make me feel better when I get into 2-hour-long arguments with chat over some, like, inane moral argument. Because I have to remind myself, like, it's not me, it's just sometimes, like, I'm arguing with people who can't parse sentence structure. Oh, man. This is actually really depressing. Can we move on? Nah, it's pretty important. I mean, I think stuff like this is important to focus on politically because it's important. I think it's important to remember that like the societal decay we're experiencing right now is part of like a broader post-truth world dynamic that we're kind of swimming through, right? Like that's the murk we're making our way through, an environment where everyone is just stupider, like not biologically, but you know, culture, smartphones, the internet, slop, memes, Anti-intellectualism as a whole, I guess. You know, we don't really value being educated. A lot of negative downstream consequences of that.
What are you doing, Wedge?
Pigeon, can I help you? Speaking of wretched, stupid things, Pigeon, what are you up to? I'll take care of her. Pigeon.
You rarely show her. Because she's a wretch.
Pictured the brain of a college English major. You want to escape? How unfortunate for you. Be free.
Got water? No. Okay. Nope, just being annoying.
Why is her head so dark? I don't know. She's a little gremlin. Too wrinkly to be a college student's brain? Yeah, maybe. Does it say if they ever retested the students to see if they were capable of learning? Look, I think everyone is capable of learning how to better parse that sort of thing. It's just that they didn't know then, right? If you ever worry about your literacy, just read a few books. Seriously, read like 3 books. And your ability to weave language and use it like a tool will increase enormously. Preferably an older book, mind. It's like Shakespeare or something. Well, I think Shakespeare's incredibly dull to read personally. Like, unless you're going through it bit by bit in class. But you should go through it bit by bit in class. Read modern shit, dog. Yeah, but a lot of modern books are like written to appeal to a modern literacy level. You're not going to have your skills challenged as much by reading Stephen King as you would Dickens, right? Read fanfic? Do not read fanfic. One of the problems with this is that some of the most enthusiastic people, the most enthusiastic readers, all the like book talk types, you know, they're all on AO3 or whatever. They're reading like slop books written for people with the literacy of an 8th grader. You know, it's not you're not challenging yourself. One of the biggest problems in education is how we worship the past, and modern people can't relate, and many great books with complex language are written today. I mean, sure, you just have to like know what they are, right? Modern books are better, get immersed in the current culture of literature, not dead men. Okay, no, I think that's very stupid. Current culture is heavily influenced by those dead men. Like, they're literally the bedrocks. That's like saying, well, if you like you want to get into like art history or whatever, you want to learn more about art, like don't learn about fucking Rembrandt, you idiot. Dali, you stupid piece of shit. He's fucking old. You need to find YouTube shorts where guys drizzle paint from a bucket that they have swinging from a rope, you know? I hate those. Yeah, well, you know. You're comparing popular culture with bourgeoisie culture? Dickens is not bourgeoisie culture. Or what? Listen to yourself, okay? Just because something's old and white men wrote it doesn't mean it's bourgeois. Come on, listen to your run it through the filter. Dickens? They are being mean as hell. Oh, here, hold on. Competent readers. Okay, wait, hold on. Proficient readers. Only 5% or 4 of the 85. Nice chambray shirt. It's denim. Of the subjects in our study were proficient readers who could translate most of the literal prose in the passage and had the reading tactics to understand most of Bleak Hollow on their own. Okay, here we go. So now, because I know a bunch of people in chat right now are anxiously comparing their knowledge to the people in this, right? They're thinking like, okay, I know more than that person, but do I know as much as somebody who this study would call proficient, right? So let's see. I'm not an English major. In all likelihood, anyone deemed proficient by this test would be better than me at reading Dickens, right? They stood out because they continually looked up words they did not know. Ah. So rather than like trying to get the vibe of a sentence, these are people who have the knowledge of what they don't know. They're curious for more knowledge. So the issue isn't the comprehension of the greater sentence. It's, you know, well, they just don't know every word from 200 years ago. Which makes sense. They clearly had a better basic vocabulary than the other student readers. They could correctly guess, for example, the meanings of words like implacable and pensioners. They could also... Is this really a tough word for an English major? They could also recognize figurative language and avoided the trap of translating metaphors and similes literally. With these abilities, proficient readers comprehended many of the details in each sentence and could interpret successive phrases and clauses in a sentence to grasp its full meaning. One subject in this category demonstrated this higher level of comprehension. Vosh had bet cynicism prevents readers from appropriately appreciating literature. I would agree with that to an extent, yeah. I think a lot of people probably think that they're smart. It's like a long-term consequence of the curtains are fucking blue type argument, where people are like, dude, my bullshit English teacher said that like when the book said that the clouds were dark, it was like symbolic of the depression of the main character after he lost his wife. Dude, the clouds were just dark. That happens sometimes. It doesn't have to mean anything. I've heard Vosh misread so many basic English words. You know that constant mispronunciation of read words is actually an indicator that a person is well read but doesn't speak on those words often, right? I'm just saying, attack me for the right things, because if the argument's the illiteracy, then it would have to be not knowing the meaning of the word, which I also do often. I'm just saying, be mean to me for the correct reason. Ameliorate. Hey, I think I used that word correctly. You just didn't like my advanced vocab. You don't like my $5 words, okay? Frankenstein's monster was just ugly. He didn't represent any outgroup. Dude, unironically, I wonder if you made kids read Frankenstein, how many, like, what they would get from that. I mean, you want to talk about like early foundational literature, right? I was never made to read Frankenstein. I've never read Frankenstein. I've read like a few paragraphs, so I get the I guess the writing style a little bit. I wonder how the people in this would take, you know, what they would take from it. Vosh is stalling on reading the competent reader section. Okay. Motherfucker. One subject in this category demonstrated this higher level of comprehension, and I'll read the text again. And we're almost done with this bit, by the way. Foot passengers jostling one another's umbrellas in a general infection of ill temper and losing their foothold at street corners where tens of thousands of other foot passengers have been slipping and sliding since the day broke, if this day ever broke, adding new deposits to the crust upon crust of mud, sticking at those points tenaciously to the pavement, and accumulating at compound interest. So it's a simple passage. It's describing the scene outside, right? The weather, the fact that it's murky, muddy, the fact that it's dark, if the day ever broke, the fact that it's not just muddy, but the mud is like sloshing and piling and accumulating and crusting, and people are trampling all over it, and all it's doing is adding to the accumulation. It seems like a simple enough sentence. Maybe there's something to it I'm missing, but let's read the subject. He's talking about foot traffic within the city, I said London first. I didn't say that out loud, but it's taking place in London, and he's talking about the foot traffic and how the weather is creating an ill temper between everyone, and everybody's jostling and fighting with each other for position on streets that are paved. It's not a pavement, it's a mess, so it's not perfectly smooth and level. And so people are slipping and sliding on cobblestone or whatever, and it happens to be, and he's connecting that with the past and saying how they're just the latest generation of people to be walking and jostling in bad weather through these stones that other people have gone before them and done the exact same things, and it accumulates a compound interest, pause. Adding new deposits to the crust upon crust of mud, sticking at those points tenaciously to the pavement and accumulating. I'm assuming compound interest means it's interest on top of interest, so it's the mud is growing exponentially, if you will, and that's one whole paragraph right there. Huh. That's better than the rest? Yeah, did they miss anything? I feel like they got it. An actually intelligent person. I don't think it's intelligence. I think it's about curiosity and familiarity. Like, genuinely, you can learn so much so quickly just by doing some reading, and then you know more, and then you sound smarter because you're using language and skills that you've developed, and then it's like, oh, how'd you get so smart? And it's like it's a skill set. Isn't that what intelligence is, though? Yeah, but we have, like, essentialized intelligence to a point. It, like, worries me, right? It is possible to have a brain that is just not that fast, but that is not what's happening here, you know? Like, our brains are more or less the same that they were 100, kind of 1,000 years ago, like, in terms of the ability to accumulate knowledge and interpret the world and so on. So I really think that it's just a matter of familiarity and intellectual curiosity. Plus, we have the plastic spoon in our brains now. That's true. That's true. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know. It's just very depressing, I guess. Curiosity equals intelligence. I think, yeah. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I do think that, for sure. Yeah, it's correct reading strategies. Healthy skepticism goes a long way. You know what the fucked up thing is? I wasn't gonna follow up on that. The fucked up thing is, I'm blanking on his name right now. Why am I blanking on his name? He was right alongside Elon Musk and Doge until he got kicked out for his gay, lengthy Twitter post about how Americans need to be more Indian. Vivek, thank you. Fuck, he's been so quiet lately. He actually left my mind. Vivek was kind of right in the sentiment of a large part of his post. Not about how we all need to be better wage slaves or anything, but it is definitely true that in America, like, we have fucking no drive for knowledge, like, at all. The only reason anyone tries to do well in school is because they want to make it big off, like, a crypto bag or something. Seriously, like, no one gives a shit. No one assigns any innate value to intellectual attainment, right? Which is pretty rough, like, culturally speaking. And pardon me for getting a little edgy with it, but, like, people will often accuse black people or, like, black culture, right? Well, you don't value education. Dude, nobody here does, right? The difference between the economic conditions black people and white people have accommodated is that black people understand that they're in an economically deprived position. The disdain for educational attainment is almost universal in this country. There are people who care about it. We call them foreign exchange students, and Harvard can't take them in anymore. Just saying. Natural consequence of American individualism? I don't even think that's true, because we had that cultural spark back in the 1940s and 1950s, and I think back then we did place a lot more value on the idea of being intelligent. I think it's broad anti-intellectualism. I just think that if you consume nothing but slop day in, day out, like, why would you aspire to anything better? I bet there are a lot of people who think that they're literate, but then could not read, well, Dickens, right? Not even just Dickens. I bet they couldn't read, who's a really easy author who I'd like? Kurt Vonnegut. Like, anyone, like, Kurt Vonnegut should be intelligible to people who are familiar with, like, I mean, like, 8th grade literacy, basically. But people get, I don't know, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's not even a class thing, by the way, because the same thing is happening to wealthy people. The idea that, like, wealthy people are all, like, hitting the studies hard and, like, really amping up the knowledge is not true. Like, just flatly, that's like an old aristocracy thing. That's like an old, like, 100 years ago, you know, you are really invested in your children being like the educated one amongst the peasants or whatever. That's just, yeah, nowadays it's just coasting on wealth and connections. None of these people are showing up at classes, and nobody gets failed. Nobody gets held behind. They should be. All of you should still be in, I don't know, 11th grade or something. Is this just phone brain? I'm not going to lie. I do think that the more time passes, like, I feel like the evidence for it being phone brain is really, really high. Like, obviously, AI is a huge contributing factor, but I think there's like a broader... at the end of the day, education should basically just be you, your brain, your hands, a pencil, a paper, and like a disciplinarian staring at you. You know? And some books? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. It all goes back to Protestantism. I'm willing to blame basically anything on Protestantism. Yeah, for sure. How are we sharing society with so many people who are basically middle schoolers? Hey, listen, keep in mind, okay? We were looking at English majors in college there. It's pretty bad in the United States. How old is this data? 2012 and 2014. So this isn't even like, this is like before smartphones being omnipresent in schools was really a super big thing. Number of U.S. adults proficiency on the PIAAC literacy scale and those who could not participate. 4% could not participate at all. 4.1 are below level 1. Level 12.9% are level 1. 31.6% are level 2. Does it provide the descriptions here for what these levels look like? If it does, am I literally blind? Five literacy levels below level 1 to level 4/5. Da da da. It's not providing me like a good key to this data, which is a bit annoying. Let me see if I can find it. We just need to cap this off. Okay, Wikipedia, you're up. 2024 data. Well, this is for grade 4. This is like test scores for children. I'm talking about like American society here. You know? In 2023, 28% of adults scored at or below level 1, 29% at level 2. Jesus Christ. 57% at level 1 or level 2. Anything below level 3 is considered partially illiterate. Not surprising anymore? Yeah. Pretty fact sheet. 59 million adults have literacy skills at or below level 1, the lowest level. 72 have numeracy skills at or below the lowest level. Gay people. 80% of people live in poverty, read at level 2 or below. This is like a really difficult question to provide answers to, and people might get mad at me, but like, the problem here isn't actually the poverty. The problem here is cultural, because being poor doesn't stop you from going to a library. Like, it's not an access thing. Information is basically limitlessly available. It's not like, well, you can't afford, because I see lefties do that sometimes, where it's like they look at data similar to this and they'll say like, well, how do you expect them? Books cost money. It's like, don't be stupid. What about time? A lot of poor people have a lot of free time. Look, there are hardworking poor people who are juggling a bunch of jobs or whatever, but like, let's wake up and live in the real world for a second, okay? It's a cultural problem with apathy to a large extent, like anti-intellectualism, laziness, uncreativity, apathy. There's definitely a relationship between that and poverty, you know? I think that like, if people have hope that their lives might improve in the future, they're more likely to work like hell to get ahead in that respect, which is one of the reasons, by the way, why poor people who are immigrating to America work really, really, really hard, right? Because in their head, they're like, well, I have the ability. There's a ladder in front of me. Like, I can actually go up that ladder. But a lot of people who are poor in the United States already don't share that mindset, possibly for valid reasons, because, you know, we don't have a high level of class mobility here compared even to some of our European contemporaries. So I think it's really like an apathy problem. It's an apathy problem. It's a cultural issue. It's a social issue, you know? About 65% of Americans don't read one book in a year. Yep. Not like I'm in any position to judge them. But isn't that apathy based on real conditions? I think there's always value in trying to like explore the world and learn new things. I think that's like, the idea that you should only educate yourself if it might lead to a higher paying job in the future is kind of the source of the issue, right? Like, we're taught, so not only will your life improve if you are more literate, like just factually that is true, right? It cannot hurt you, it can only help you. But in addition to that, it's like the idea that the incentive for being knowledgeable should be the financial reward, you know, that's kind of like the issue, right? I don't know. Very dystopian perspective. I mean, it's true. It's just, it's not really like a perspective thing. I think it's just true. I hate that this study like tries to measure the consequences of illiteracy in money. Anyway, it's not a coincidence that Trump actually won for the first time in a long time. Trump, a Republican, actually won over the low income, low education demographic in society. You know, it's there are like real political consequences to this beyond just a lack of personal attainment, you know? Oh, well, anyway. Oh, fuck, I said I was going to give shit to my editors. Ah! Ah! Ah, but I have to I have to give them stuff that pertains to like breaking news, not just this stuff. Ah, I gotta cover it. I gotta cover it. Fuck. Okay, we know what the real breaking news, not from today, but from last night is, huh? You know, don't you? Which one? Come on. You know. Man accused of killing 2 Israeli embassy staffers in D.C. charged with murder of foreign officials. Pretty straightforward title. I honestly, from a like in a purely like look at the facts of the case kind of way, it's pretty straightforward and there's not much to say. Guy said free Palestine as he was being escorted out. Is that contained in this video here?
2 Israeli embassy employees based in Washington, D.C. were shot and killed outside the Capitol Jewish Museum late Wednesday night. We are about a block away from where that shooting took place. As you can see, several police cars are blocking off the entire area, and numerous
I can't see
reporters with outlets from around the world are still here reporting live. We are very close, to give you a sense of where we're at, to an FBI field office several blocks away from the U.S. Capitol. Numerous law enforcement agencies from the area responded to the shooting, including Attorney General Pam Bondi, who said during a press conference that the suspect will be, quote,
the shooter was extremely mentally unwell. Their Twitter account was banned for spamming death threats at Will Stancil. At Will Stancil? No way. You're kidding me. Fuck, that's funny. Oh my god. Who's Will Stancil? One of the more aggressive lib posters on Twitter. Not to say I agree with everything that he says or anything. He is a poster though. Capital P poster. You know, that's it's an honorable role. I had no idea. Well, I assumed this guy was mentally ill because I'll assume like at a default anyone who does like a targeted like killing of civilians is mentally ill. Usually that turns out to be the case. Jesus, that's wild. Here's a vid of the suspect saying free Palestine. Yeah, I saw this is one of the reasons people are calling it a false flag, because he was given like a tee up for this, but given a tee up? Oh, just because it looks like they let him talk, but I think that's just people baiting. You know, that's just people want to see conspiracy everywhere. The idea that some of the more mentally ill pro-Palestinian types would do some, we'll say Israel-style military action themselves and kill civilians. It's not surprising given how the discourse has panned out. We'll add this to, you know, to the bucket of civilians that have been killed as a consequence of Israel's ongoing genocide of the Palestinians. It's unfortunate. You shouldn't kill civilians. Pardon me. I know me and my hot takes. Even if they're working with the Israeli embassy, any arguments you see from the left, and there are people doing this, where they're like, well, maybe they shouldn't have been working with Israel. Come on, stop. They're civilians. But Israel kills civilians. Yes, they do in enormous quantities. I'm not engaging in an equation here. I'm just saying, like, don't pretend this gets anything for anyone, right? If anything, you know, you can all look forward to the revocation of the First Amendment sometime within the next few months. Because you know they're begging for it, right? Like they want so badly. They've been screeching about pro-Hamas terrorism on campus that doesn't exist for over a year now. Obviously, they're looking for, you know, any possible excuse. Do we have an example of that? Do we have an example of that insanity here?
The fact of the matter is the Palestinian cause is an evil one.
Yeah, and Congressman, there is a ceasefire deal on the table right now that the White House is hoping both Israel and Hamas will sign on to. Does this shooting change anything when it comes to the course of the war or the negotiations to end it?
Well, I think it speaks to the importance of the only end of the conflict is complete and total surrender by those who support Muslim terror. In World War II, we did not negotiate a surrender with the Nazis. We did not negotiate a surrender with the Japanese. We nuked the Japanese twice.
Wait, we did? That's how you end a war. Yes, we did. It's an unconditional surrender, but that is. Okay, sorry, just basic, like, lack of historical knowledge.
In order to get unconditional surrender, that needs to be the same here. There is something deeply, deeply wrong with this culture, and it needs to be defeated.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, the total number of civilians who have been killed as a consequence of this conflict has gone up from, like, well in excess of 50,000, I'll tell you that much, to slightly more than well in excess of 50,000. Not trying to be callous about it. It's just like, we all know what's coming from this, right? What's the consequence of this going to be? Is it going to be Israeli detente? Is it going to be a ceasefire? Is it going to be an international response to crack down on the genocide? Of course not. It's going to be political persecution of anti-genocide protesters here in the United States. Didn't you know they were set to be engaged, though? The two were killed? No, I didn't know that. That's sad. Were they? Or do you mean the shooter in one of the two that he killed? Because if that just opens up more questions. Yes? Yes to the first one? Okay. Yeah, that's sad. No to the first one? Yeah, I figured. I figured. Anyway, I just, yeah, don't buy into the Fed bullshit, obviously. Anyone who tries to turn this into like a, well, the left actually is anti-Semitic or what have you is obviously lying for political gain. And there's a decent chance the person making that argument is a Nazi, right? Given the state of the right at the moment. But also at the same time, anyone who's like, well, actually, this was based, like, this is adventurism, you know? Like, that's, you know, adventurism? Where it's not about like the outcome. You're not trying to fight for any kind of like political change. You're instead just trying to like feel like you're the most basest activist in the world. The ADL called out Hassan by name for this. Well, sure, the ADL is a tool of the military-industrial complex. They are an organization that cynically weaponizes accusations of anti-Semitism in order to further a Zionist agenda. They've done the extent of their bias is, I mean, it was always pretty clear, but like after October 7th, that shit got real wacky. Yeah, remember after fucking Elon Musk's Nazi salute, they were like, okay, everyone, come on. It's just like, it's ridiculous. All right, so what are they saying?
But all of us need to call it out. I'm thinking about the New York Times doing a gauzy profile a few weeks ago of this gamer, Hassan Piker, who regularly employs...
Don't think he's a gamer. I haven't seen any impressive video game performances from him, to be honest with you.
This awful genocidal rhetoric against Jewish people in the Jewish state. Like, extremists should not be empowered. People who spout prejudice should not be platformed. This is a moment when we need to look ourselves in the mirror and say, we've got to stop this because the consequences are deadly.
Yeah, you get it. But like the ADL would like happily trade away American democracy and every constitutional protection that we enjoy for infinite, unending military support to Israel. The idea that they're a civil rights organization is laughable. Literally look at anything they've said or been saying. There's not much really to go over there. It's like we know what their job is, right? Yeah, unending, infinite Gazan child death or whatever. No, it's this could very well mark a turning point, you know, an enormous crackdown. Yeah, I don't know. History's going to look at us very, very unfavorably, right? When the historians are mounting up the enormous pile of dead from this conflict, and they see, you know, what our government and other Western governments wrought as what they were excused to do as a consequence of you know, this conflict. It's not going to look good for us. And by us, of course, I mean Americans. And us in terms of lefties will come out looking sterling. Because, like, just don't do the genocide. Just stop killing people would be great. I do think that genocide is bad. I know. This is, by the way, and this is not an exaggeration, a position for which people are literally getting deported. I want to be clear on that. It's not like that's not even a joke. Like, that verbatim, that statement actually is getting people deported. But bravely, I insist. I don't think that genocide is good, in my opinion. Apparently, this guy had a manifesto. I mean, he's like fucking crazy, right?
Pigeon, I swear.
One second. Oh, hold on one second. Pigeon wants water. Yeah, he can put fountains all over the house, but it doesn't make a difference with them, you know? No, he actually wasn't crazy. I think it's pretty crazy to kill civilians, in my opinion. I don't know. Dude, like, where are your faculties if you're reacting, if in this political environment, you're like, you know what's really going to tip the needle, like, in the favor of, like, the Palestinian people, what's going to, like, improve their outlook, what's going to make the world a better place? What if I tee the Zionist state up for this one? That shit's crazy. Being earnestly invested in politics already means you're mentally ill. Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Many were criticizing Bernie for condemning this guy. Yeah, like I said, adventurism. You know? A lot of a lot of people's, like, engagement with and interest in this issue at this point, they're so frustrated by the lack of action, the obvious lies and hypocrisy, the genocidal language and actions from Israel and America, that they're like, yeah, anything, whatever, stuff's happening, yeah, but they don't. It's not rooted in a desire to improve anything, right? Like, again, that's adventurism. That's the term. It's wacky business, you know. I am seriously worried Hassan's going to be arrested in some kind of concocted connection with the shooter. Well, who's connected? I remember seeing on Twitter that the he was connected to some lefty org back in, like, 2017. Like, he was briefly the PSL, briefly affiliated with the PSL like 8 years ago or something. So they're probably gonna pin that on them. PSL clapped him. Well, yeah, God, what are they gonna do? Fucking take credit for it? What's the difference between the right calling their domestic terrorist mentally ill and us calling this guy mentally ill? There is no difference because we're both correct. People who do domestic terrorism, by and large, are mentally ill. He wrote an article for their newsletter and they just took it down. He was more than just temporarily associated. So he wrote an article for them 8 years ago. I just don't know what kind of ongoing association they had. I just know it was in 2017. But isn't blaming mental illness on this put mentally ill people in a negative light? I don't... You have to approach this from a reality-first perspective, I'm sorry to say. Okay. 1 sec. Cats are playing. Oh, man. Well, might as well grimly engage with this news. Apparently, the right on Twitter is trying to get Hassan banned again due to this attack. Yeah, eventually they're probably going to succeed, unfortunately. Let's look at Pam Bondi.
I looked the killer in the eyes and said, "Can I get you water?" He said, "Yes, that would be great." And I walked to get it to him, and I literally handed it off. Unbeknownst to me, moments ago, this man had execution-style killed 2 people. Not one shot. We're talking multiple gunshots. And I looked evil right in the eye, and there he was. And seconds after I handed him the water, he brandishes the keffiyeh, yells "Free Palestine," and then he's apprehended. And that's how it all unfolded.
Wow. That's the woman who organized last night's event.
She provided him water? Shit. She's going to get arrested for providing aid and support to terrorists.
Last hour, she was on the air telling us how she came face to face with the man who police say killed 2 Israeli embassy staffers in Washington, D.C. Only blocks away from the U.S. Capitol building, the suspected gunman seen shouting on camera, yelling "Free Palestine." The Attorney General Pam Bondi joins me now, and thank you for your time, and good morning to you, to the people in Washington, D.C., to the Jewish members of your community in Washington and throughout America.
How long until Free Palestine is hate speech? They are literally deporting people for saying it. They've been arguing that it's hate speech for quite a while now.
Condolences as they take in this news today. The suspect is described as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago. What have you learned about him?
Yeah, we can't give any more details right now about him other than he is in custody and authorities believe he acted alone. So we are doing everything we can to protect our entire community and especially our Jewish community right now. It was horrific. I was out at the scene last night with Jeanine Pirro, who is our U.S. attorney and will be prosecuting this case.
Okay, so a few minutes ago, we had a guest on who made a claim that he was a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation.
Oh, no.
We haven't confirmed that. Can you?
Yeah, I can't confirm any of that now because, again, this is a pending investigation. What I can say is 2 beautiful young people were gunned down last night needlessly. You know, I saw his body being taken away from the scene. That was horrific. No parents should have to be called and told that their children were violently murdered, leaving a religious event at the Jewish Museum. That should never happen in this world and not in our country. And this person will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. As far as the facts in the law bill, we'll follow those. We'll follow those where they lead, but we will ensure everyone, America will be safe. We will do everything we can. This violence has to stop.
Yeah. The eyewitnesses we have spoken to have given us some descriptions that really defy law.
I feel like the biggest argument against it being a false flag is just the fact that they would have capitalized on it way more aggressively if it was. Not to be cynical, obviously, you know, we live in a post-Third Reich, currently Fourth Reich world, where we're familiar with the extent to which governments will lie and cause suffering to further their agenda. You know, I honestly, the only thing I'm interested in talking about with regard to this in the future, apart from sort of stamping down on the adventurous bullshit from lefties who haven't really thought out what they want to say, is just like, damn, we're gonna lose our gosh darn First Amendment over this one, huh? Two bodies and an amendment. It's a pretty bad shooting. Okay, now I have to send this off. I think titling that "Say Goodbye to Our First Amendment" is a little bit too callous. I guess, like, the fucked up thing is that it is completely socially allowed to be extremely callous about the death of a virtually, like, infinite number of Palestinians, but you have to you have to tiptoe, the opposite of trample, so much around this, obviously because of the political environment. Like, you can, you know, well, there goes Netanyahu something, right? Trying to think. Two Bodies and an Amendment is a title. Yeah, but that's too smart for the literacy levels 1 and 2 individuals who watch my content. They wouldn't be able to, they would even when given access to a dictionary and a phone, they wouldn't be able to. The situation, it's crazy. Fuck, you're right. You people are distracting me. I have to think on this. Free speech crackdown incoming after embassy worker shooting? No, that sucks. Am I being too fearful? Yes? Yeah, probably. I guess we're all going to the same camp. Say goodbye to the First Amendment. I'm saying Shooter kills 2 Israeli embassy workers. There we go. That should be fine. That's a weird title for a video about murder. Don't you fucking start. You're doing the fucking thing that I'm talking about. Video about murder. What the fuck are you talking about? There are broader geopolitical consequences to the event. We're not at a funeral. Not every video that contains mortal topics has to be well, in memoriam or something. We're talking about events and consequences. My bad, don't crash out. I don't forgive you. All right. What the hell? Yep, that's a lot of links, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, well, we got it. Right after our big, beautiful, sprightly young 75-year-old Jerry Connolly died of cancer.
A little background I can tell you all. This time yesterday, we saw the House up all night. It was day 2 of
by the narrowest
night, as well as
margins.
Are charging ahead of their multi-trillion-dollar tax breaks package.
A Republican victory.
Speaker Mike Johnson defying the skeptics within his ranks.
A passing of the one big beautiful bill.
Trump's priority bill to pass.
Now, in fairness, even if he hadn't died, they probably still, because 2 people fell asleep during the proceedings. So in all likelihood, even if he hadn't died, they still would have passed it. Even if none of the 3 Democrats who have died this year died, they still would have found the votes. But it's still, I'm still going to get mad about it. And he's dead, so he can't get mad at me for being mad about it. He can't defend himself. Yeah, it's really bad. Country's pretty much cooked. I don't really know what to say about it, to be honest with you. It's pretty bad. Look, we've talked about the... Okay, so first of all, to be clear, this still has to go through the Senate. What does the bill do? It's 1,000 pages long. The broad sweep of it, the broad... Okay, we're reestablishing and cementing 2017 tax cuts that primarily benefit the wealthy. We're cutting a bunch of money from Medicaid, from food assistance. A lot of programs are getting cuts. Expanded SALT deduction. That's nice. Nice concession to the blue state Republicans in the House and Senate, I suppose. I'm on Snapvosh. That's great. Don't make your problems my problems. You're a white name? Keep it that way. It's yeah. The Senate has their own version, so it probably won't survive. Yeah, I don't know about that, personally. I don't know about that. It feels like we're kind of in the end game. Something like 13 million people are going to lose their Medicaid. Something like 10 million people are going to lose their food assistance. It's going to get a lot worse for a lot of people. And oh boy, is it Is it expanding the deficit? I mean, we are going into debt with this one. I mean, let's just read off the extend tax cuts enacted during Trump's first term. That's great. An array of new tax write-offs, but only while Trump is president. This is a classic one. You balance the budget initially such that you get these benefits, but they only last as long as is politically necessary. Past that point, it expires. Hey-do. Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you for reminding me. I think somebody linked the Aaron Reed article earlier, but any adult trans people who were interested in getting gender-affirming care, got bad news for you. Guess what's off the list? Bans Medicaid from covering transition-related care. Doesn't matter what doctors say, whether it's considered life-saving, how expensive it is, whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Not just Medicaid, all ACA providers. No kidding. The bill would also prohibit marketplace plans available under the Affordable Care Act from covering transgender care as an essential health benefit. They hate you trans folks so fucking much. Hey, true, but keep in mind, lots of innocent cisgender cinnamon rolls who are going to get caught up in this one too, folks. Okay? They do hate everyone. Trans people are down on the rung, but we're all being sort of slam dunked into the pit with this one. Expanded SALT deduction, that's great. Money for mass deportations and a border wall. Huge amounts of money being pumped into the Department of Homeland Security and the Justice Department, likely because those are the two federal agencies that have been brown shirting the most aggressively since Inauguration Day. I still think the reason why the FBI isn't covered in this is because the FBI is full of, for the most part, seasoned and respectable professionals. Not saying they're good people, but professionals who don't like being bossed around by retards. Whereas Pam Bondi has a lot of power just as head of DOJ, and also ICE was already full of morons, so it's fine. Like, you know, the Department of Homeland Security was very easy to weaponize because everyone in the department was already a rabid fascist. A much higher budget deficit. Oh, baby, look at this. All these tax breaks and other spending come with a major cost. Congress's nonpartisan fiscal scorekeeper, the Congressional Budget Office, estimates the bill's tax policies alone will add nearly $3.8 trillion to the federal deficit. Yep. So just wait. Listen, okay? We're going to be coasting easy until inevitably we default on our debt, at which point the world will end. That'll be, that's the end of it, you know? That's the end of it. Keep in mind, by the way, that so much money is being burned here that them reducing how much they're providing through Medicaid and through food assistance, through SNAP, they're just doing that for the love of the game. It's clearly not to balance the budget because this is even more deficitary than we were already. Like, that's just spite. You know? How long until we default in our budget? Honestly, at the rate the interest that we pay is growing, I don't think it's even going to take that long. Not the way things are going right now. A potentially potent restriction on federal courts. That's cool. The bill includes a provision that prohibits federal courts from enforcing contempt citations related to temporary restraining orders or preliminary injunctions. Why is that in a budget bill? Whatever. Transformed social safety net programs, right? We know about that one, Medicaid and SNAP. Classics. Not Medicare, because that's for old people who vote for Trump, you know. More benefits for the rich than the poor. We know, don't worry. The end of Biden's green energy initiatives and an increasing debt ceiling. An increased debt limit up to $4 trillion. By the way, a phenomenal, is there anything other countries can realistically do to try to soften the blow of America defaulting? I think North Korea has the right idea. Raising the debt limit as we are right now in this fashion, the fact that the Treasury bond yields are where they are right now, I don't think folks are willing to pay for the amount that it would take to buy this up. Keep in mind, the way we pay for all of this crap, we raise the debt limit, and then how do we raise the money, right? We're borrowing it. That's why the debt's going up. We're borrowing the money. Who's giving us the money? They're buying Treasury bonds. But in the last Treasury bond auction, we had some trouble selling enough debt. As a consequence, yields have spiked. Paywall? Fuck you. 20-year Treasury auction goes badly, yields spike as bonds sell off. I think we're up to like 5% or something like that. Let me check. 30-year Treasury bond yields. Give me the data, please. Yikes! Yeah, that looks like it's up. Higher bond yields means we're trying to incentivize people to buy more government debt. We're trying to sweeten the pot. Oh, you get more interest off of it. More interest they get off of it means what? Who's paying that interest? We are, the taxpayer. So we're opening up the debt limit by $4 trillion, which means we want people to buy more bonds, but people are already not buying those bonds. Moody's recently downgraded U.S. Debt, the certification of our debt, U.S. credit, downgraded it, which means that people don't consider, our credit rating, thank you, I was blanking on that, which means people don't consider our treasury to be as lucrative a long-term prospect. We're not as reliable. So what does this mean? Well, in order to continue selling the treasury bonds that the government will need to in order to raise the money that it needs to spend, it's going to have to hike up the yields even further, which means that the interest payments are going to be even greater, which means, let me bring out my favorite recent chart, if I may. This lovely trend can continue. That's how much we spend on our interest payments. It's a lot. And we will be, we will be spending more on our interest because we're considered less trustworthy. Is that adjusted for inflation? Yeah, I believe it is. But that actually wasn't the chart I was looking at. This is the chart I was looking at. Hey, hey! Cumulative interest costs this year are higher than in recent years. In 2020, by the end of the year, we had paid $352 billion on interest to our national debt. And by 2024, that's up to $882 billion. Wow! That's crazy. In 4 years, we multiplied the interest that we pay every year by 2.5. The trend's going up. This line's going to keep going up. Anyway, eventually we might have to default in our debt, at which point, I hope you like squirrel meat. I hope you like cannibalism. I hope you enjoy Road Warrior, Mad Max style shenanigans. Okay? You're going to be thinking favorably of the lentils and beans and rice that you have been eating in the before times, okay? Should I buy gold? People will break into your house and steal it. I wouldn't. There's no getting around this one. Move to North Korea. I hear they have a good independent system going over there. Actually, since this deficit is so high, it will automatically cut Medicare due to the PAYGO Act. Really? I don't know about this. It requires Medicare sequestration at this level, so it will be cut without Republicans writing it explicitly into the bill. Really? Okay, so it might just like actually be over. Right? Are we getting there?
As you know, statutory pay-go, which stands for pay-as-you-go, is a law that requires tax cuts and spending increases to be offset, meaning that they do not add to the deficit. If at the end of the year congressional legislation collectively violates pay-go, those deficit effects trigger across-the-board cuts to programs like Medicare. Does this bill trigger statutory pay-go?
Yes, and it's not me saying it. It is the Congressional Budget Office confirming it as of a couple hours ago. And look, this is really the breaking news, because when the Budget Committee kicked off this process approximately 3 months ago, there was a commitment by President Trump that there would be no Medicare cuts in this piece of legislation. And indeed, over the last several months, there's been no discussion of Medicare at all. There has been of Medicaid, but not of Medicare. Well, here we are tonight because, as you explained, because of the size of the deficits, because of the pay-go or pay-as-you-go act, that would trigger sequestration.
How does this help Republicans even? They hate you. The Republicans are running this country the way a private equity firm runs a company that they purchase. A private equity firm takes advantage of a company's bankruptcy by buying it up and then uses shell companies to do a complicated series of self-lending schemes, basically as a way of making the company assume its own debt. Past that point, they can run it into the ground and sell it for scrap. They can run it as efficiently as possible, and then more efficiently than it can be run, bleeding off staff, selling the light fixtures, whatever. Meanwhile, the people from the private equity firm who appointed themselves to the heads of this new shell company that runs the old company make 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 million dollars in golden parachutes they skip off. All the workers at the former company lose their job, but they're guaranteed those paychecks contractually. That's what we're seeing here. That's why they're doing this. They are siphoning money from the people to the wealthy. Now, whether it'll work without triggering a global economic collapse, I don't really know. The wealthy don't necessarily benefit from that either. Not really. Maybe just a few of them. Wait, U.S. credit was actually downgraded? Yeah, did you think I was joking? And you know why Moody's downgraded U.S. credit? Because they said we ain't paying all that shit back. There's no fucking way. They said there's no fucking way you balance those books. And they're completely correct.
Of Medicare, and it would total over $500 billion. The official figure that CBO confirms is $535 billion in cuts to Medicare.
And this bill doesn't waive statutory pay-go?
No, it does not.
So this will have a direct impact on Medicare and the federal budget, which is, again, I think a lot of people who are not following this as closely as you are probably.
Why is the stock market not responding negatively? They're stupid. Genuinely, that's it. The stock market is not actually a reflection of the health of the economy, current or future. The stock market is a reflection of inertia, bias in the people who hold those shares collectively, and also to a large extent people who are desperately trying to get a bag off of predicting a market collapse or resurgence. It's all just cryptocurrencies. Like, you might as well be asking, I just read an article like talking about how the Bored Ape Yacht Club is like a total scam and nobody even in the club believes it anymore. Why isn't Bitcoin down? You're assuming way too much of a relationship to reality in this commodity, in this like investment. It's very little to do with reality. Public perception, it means nothing.
You're not aware of, and we'll be surprised to learn about tomorrow. Chairman.
Nice. This excerpt about the lead up to 1929 crash rings true. Oh, I've read this bit. By the summer of 1929, some danger signs were apparent. For example, the startling decline in building contracts. Net investment for residential construction for the entire year sank to $216 million, over $1 billion less than in 1928. At the same time, there was an alarming growth in business inventories, more than trebling from $500 million in 1928 to $1,800 million in 1929. Concurrently, the rate of consumer spending was slackening. It had risen at a rate of 7.4% in 79-78, but slowed to an inauspicious 1.5% in 27 to 28 versus 28 to 29. By midsummer 1929, these developments began to be discernible in production and price indexes. Industrial production reached its height in June, then dropped off in July. Employment rose till July. Building began to fall off, and week after week, wholesale commodity prices dropped with ominous regularity. In August, the Federal Reserve Board strengthened deflationary tendencies by finally agreeing to raise the discount rate to 6%. But the stock market, riding on the impetus of half a dozen years of steady increase, paid little attention to the indexes. Does this sound familiar to you at all? Early in September, stock exchange price averages reached their highest point of all time. AT&T was up to 304, General Electric up to 396, having more than tripled its price in 18 months. By the beginning of October, brokers' loans, an index of margin buying, topped the 6 billion mark. Business leaders, meanwhile, competed with each other in expressions of optimism, and Washington displayed no concern. So, just keep in mind, man, the economists, right now, the economists are talking about all of this, but DC doesn't listen to economists. They don't, and they never have. Oh, they're also attacking, at long last, the most anti-consumer program yet devised by the mind of the IRS, seeking to eventually replace and thus rob us of our freedom to pay tax filing firms $150 to do no work at all. The IRS created the Free File program that allows every American to, for free, file their own taxes. But don't worry, Republicans are on the case.
Regardless of zip code. In addition, we are bringing an end to the unauthorized, wasteful, and redundant IRS direct file program, which directly contradicts taxpayers' best interest. Your best interest is to pay TurboTax $150. H&R Block? I don't know which lawyers got, or which lobbyists got to him specifically, but is years in the making, and we now have the opportunity to deliver on the job Americans elected us to do in a fiscally responsible way. I strongly.
Very good. I wonder how much he was bought for. Very, very good. I once fucked up my taxes by forgetting to declare income. Really? That does sound like a big fuck up. That's a big one. Yeah, you got to do that, man. That's like it's actually the main thing you have to do. The Trump administration's line for the deficit is basically to say, as long as the economy grows, we're good. Yep. That is the overriding like modern neoliberal logic, which is essentially that you can run this up as much as you want. As long as the economy as a whole grows, it doesn't matter because your tax base continues to grow. As a matter of fact, I was watching this fucking retard. I think he was on NBC while I was driving back home today, who was like giving his expert analysis on the effects of the big beautiful bill, which he was decrying, by the way. He was speaking negatively of it, and he was like, well, actually what you're supposed to do is lower taxes to stimulate the economy, but then, unlike what the Trump administration is doing, you have to slowly cut programs to reel in the deficit. People like this are the bedrock of of Washington, right, of our modern economy. That is to say, delusional corporatists who have no idea what they're saying, but they will repeat the dogma that they've been provided for their entire lives. Our deficit is so big that at the current tax level, we will never, ever bring it down. Again, and I've said this before, if we eliminated Department of Defense spending, that's bringing it to $0. Zero, nada, the deficit wouldn't even be halved. At the end of the day, it all comes down to taxes and wealth taxes. It all comes down to pulling in the money. The idea that you're going to solve this without raising taxes, impossible, undoable. And the problem that I have is that I don't think Democrats are going to be able to fix this. I mean, obviously, they can't fix anything, right? But like, this problem, this deficit might be so bad at this point that the degree of tax raising or like wealth busting you would have to engage in are beyond their purview. They're not capable of it. The voters would not allow it, I think. Yeah, to an extent, I think that's true. You would need like an overwhelming public mandate. Is it Jover? It might actually be, yeah. We're running out of options for ways of dealing with America's falling credit rating, our debt, our deficit, the interest that we pay. It seems like, and don't get me wrong, this is an extremely solvable problem if you just tax people and don't engage in monetary policy that allows trillions to be hoarded in offshore accounts invisible to the IRS. Okay? This is doable. If there was one really smart IRS guy who was like, listen, just give me the power and I'll fix it, he could fix it. But we don't have that guy, and we never will, because nobody's going to give him that power. You understand what I'm saying? This might actually be it. I thought I saw a wealth tax could bring in $3 trillion over a decade. $3 trillion over a decade. Do you have any idea how little that is? Do you know what our deficit is right now? Projected deficit for 2025. The projected deficit is roughly 1.9 trillion. That's projected. We'll see what that actually ends up looking like. And also, you need to figure the end. And by the way, if we tax enough to meet that deficit, congratulations, we're still paying $1 trillion a year in interest. That just stops increasing the debt. Do you understand? The numbers here are mind-boggling. And all of it is because they have allowed this economy, this economy has been constructed to siphon wealth from the poor to the wealthy. And they deliberately designed it that way. Reagan, with his Reaganomics, with his restructuring. Obama, with the fucking quantitative easing, which never stopped. The Fed will literally always be solvent. It's all just an IOU. Also, the deficit is just private savings. You have no idea. You have no idea. You MMT motherfuckers. You have no idea what's coming. You have no idea. Are we talking about Great Depression or the apocalypse? I feel like the United States defaulting on its debt would actually be more apocalyptic than the Great Depression by a pretty significant margin. Like, I don't think anyone's like written out. I don't think anyone knows what exactly it would look like, but I think it's reasonable to assume it would be worse than the Great Depression.
Talk to me about what this bill costs. I mean, it's being widely reported so far coming out of the House, it would cost $4 trillion. If you're looking for $2 trillion in mandatory spending cuts, which is what I understand that you said, correct me if I'm wrong. So, but that doesn't get you down to a lower number. What do you think about the trillions of dollars that this would add potentially to the debt? And how do we alleviate that?
So here's the tax cuts cost $4 trillion. Okay. We believe that it is important, and a foundation for balancing the budget is to remain a growing economy. This bill will preserve that option. We will have $2.6 trillion of economic growth, dynamic scoring. We don't think that that is a high watermark. We actually think that's middle of the road expectation of what we could.
This has been the dogma they've been pushing for a long time. It's just like none of this matters as long as the economy grows. As long as the line goes up. And by the way, the reason the line is going up is because banks are just lending money and lending money. Cut taxes, cut interest rates so banks can lend money essentially for free. So everyone has debt that they use to buy debt, that they use to buy debt, that they use to buy debt, that they use to buy debt. Everyone's speculating on the speculation of the speculated debt. But it's all a siphon.
See, and then the remaining amount is $2 trillion of the mandatory reforms pays for what the economic growth does not get us all the way there with. And so we are...
Jesus. Japanese government official accidentally said in a hot mic that the U.S. bonds are worse than Greece. Yeah, there's probably some truth to that. Also, when Greece collapsed, it was like a problem for Greece and the region. When America collapses, it's going to be like a problem. Dumb question, but how's it still working? The only reason it still works right now is because in spite of everything, people still believe that the United States government is going to be able to pay back the debt that it owes and the interest on that debt, both the interest and the principal. And the way we pay it off is by selling new debt at higher interest rates. It's an exponential problem. Like, imagine the difference in terms of credibility between the bank offering you a $30,000 loan so you can get started on purchasing a car or something, because we do that now through like car specific loans, but let's just say you're going to the bank for it because we're in the olden times or something, okay? Let's say you do that, right? And your credit score looks good. Well, they wouldn't have had a credit score back then. You have a good credit history is what I mean to say, okay? You are considered a trustworthy person to receive loans. Now imagine that you're going up to the bank and you're asking for a loan, and the bank is like, didn't I see you here last week? You still owe us money. And you say, oh shit, yeah, no, I have that money. I borrowed it from the other bank down the street. And I got that money from borrowing it from that bank further down the street. And I got that money from borrowing it even further down, et cetera, et cetera. So my total amount of owed debt is now like $50 trillion. But as long as I keep running in a circle and borrowing from banks and leveraging the money that I have now to borrow against, I can keep giving everyone in the circle their money back eventually until it scales beyond the point where any of these banks trust him. Eventually, one of those banks is going to go, no, we're not doing this anymore. We're not enabling this cycle. And that's when the global economy collapses. So it's a Ponzi scheme? Essentially, yes. I don't know. Dumb question, why can't it just go on forever? Well, it can if you listen to MMT theorists. No, I'm sorry, they're just very annoying online sometimes. It can go on for a long time, but only as trustworthy as you are. The reason the United States has been able to get away with this is because we are as Masai Guyu just said, the global hegemon. We're literally top dog in the world. If any other country on earth had tried to do with their debt, with their spending, what we do, no chance. And other countries have tried, by the way. Other countries have tried. We've seen like this same speculative bubble. This has happened in other countries before, but we've allowed it to skyrocket like out of control. And to a large extent, that's because we have Wall Street. We have enormous amounts of money. We have the global reserve currency. And guys, don't you think it makes the US dollar a lot more trustworthy in the long term that we have a global reserve currency? Like, think about it. Every country on earth holds US dollars. They have to in order to like trade internationally. So everyone's invested in our currency. So it has to be trustworthy, right? Right? It's not like that with everything. You can go find currencies in Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia, whatever, where it's like, yeah, that's their local currency. But would you be willing to invest trillions of dollars into the long-term financial security of Thailand? Maybe a few million, maybe a few billion. Would you be willing to invest 36 trillion? Probably not. You don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. Thailand's pretty stable. Yeah, but it's not America. And they don't possess the global reserve currency. They don't have the same kind of institutional backing, the same power, the same trust that allows them to keep saying over and over again as people line up for their treasury bond auctions, you, yes you, don't you worry. Not only will we pay your investment back with interest in a timely manner, but inflation will remain under control. So when you get this money back, it'll be worth a lot. It'll be worth more than what you invested it, than what it was when you invested it. But that's all based on trust. Is now a bad time to move out of my parents' house? Depends. Do they have a job? Anyway, does everyone understand? Like, there's the reason I'm talking about all of this is because, like, this bill in this form cements a series of decisions or patterns or maybe like arcs that we're following. And I think it might put us in position for an unavoidable collapse. It's not going to happen this year or the next. Right now, the big fight is democracy, the judiciary, the fight for rights within our country, trans rights, immigrant rights, etc. But next year, the year after that, I don't know. What can other countries of the EU do to at least prepare for this? The main thing that they could do to prepare would facilitate the collapse, because what they would do would be to sell their holdings in the treasury. Divest, get their money back now, but that would hasten the collapse of the country. The decoupling would make it worse for us. Could the EU and China coordinate on this? Sure, but it would be like a backstab. You know, I don't think it's a coincidence that one of the things that Mark Carney floated right before Trump mysteriously stopped talking about annexing Canada was making a joke on a Canadian news program about holding U.S. Treasury bonds. At which point I assume somebody next to Trump said, "Sir, you need to cut this the fuck out." Because right now our bond market is in such a fragile position that all it would take is one or two nations dumping the $500 billion, full trillion, whatever they have, to blow us the fuck up. Because then we would be on the hook for more debt. We'd have to pay it by borrowing more. We'd have to open up additional markets. And what happens if people don't want to buy the additional debt? We have to offer it at a higher yield. How high of a yield? 6, 7, 8, 10, 20? How high of a yield would be necessary to make up for the sudden drop in our treasury holdings? And how much interest would we have to pay on that in the future? Is there enough money in circulation / holdings to pay for such a large debt? Yeah, but you'd have to tax the wealthy. Well, at this point, you couldn't just tax with income tax. You would need wealth taxes, and you would need a borderline military taxation of offshore tax accounts. I'm talking like U.S. Army planes flying over Bermuda, the Cayman Islands. And this would upset the global rich, by the way, not just us, because a billionaire is, there's no such thing as an American billionaire. All billionaires are global. Their holdings are everywhere. They have money in many different currencies. But that's not going to happen. I don't think the Democrats have the balls to do that. They do, after all, answer to the exact same fucking corporatist interest that Republicans listen to up until they decide it would be better to listen to the oligarchs, so... A land value tax wouldn't be enough. The reason a land value tax wouldn't be enough is because an obscene amount of the money that represents our GDP is cycling around in a fucking ghost economy that floats above the real one. In the real day-to-day world, the place where you and I exist, money is the thing you get in a paycheck, or in my case, a Google AdSense payout or whatever, PayPal receipts. I go to a store, I spend it. Sometimes it's in cash, usually it's on a card. The money, however, does move. It moves between people. But a huge majority of the wealth in this country is either held in a speculative market or it's money held on debt. It's a consequence of our fractional reserve banking system, where the money isn't real in the sense that it was created by the Treasury. It's been loaned out by the banks at very low interest rates because people use that money to invest it, speculate with it, and get more money in return. It's cloud money. If you had everyone called on it right now in this moment, the system would fall apart. That's not how it works with you and I, right? Like, imagine you have investments and stuff. If you put your foot down and you said, nope, I want this all in cash now, you could get it. It might take a bit, but you could get it. Your house, your car, every non-liquid asset, you could dissolve it and you could have it in a liquid form. It might take a bit, but you could do it. That is not the case with the majority of money in our economy. Tens of trillions of dollars exist in like a superposition. They do and they don't belong to the bank. If everyone got called on that, the global economy would collapse. It's an abomination. It never should have been allowed to exist. When will this economics doomsday scenario happen? I don't know. Should interest just straight up not exist? Honestly, I'm trending towards that, yeah. I'm genuinely, like, the more I'm reading, like, snippets about monetary policy, I'm starting to think, like, oh, by the way, you all know I'm a socialist, right? So when people are like, what, you think interest shouldn't exist? I'm like, wait, that's not even the most radical thing I believe. Like, people are like, dude, you can't not have fractional reserve banking. And I'm like, this is like several layers removed from what I've proposed on stream. But no, genuinely, it seems like, I mean, leaving aside the fractional stuff, it seems like at a base level, like if you loan money, you need to have the money that you loan. Like you can't, like the fractional stuff, I don't even like speculation. It seems like as time has gone on, like, dude, there's no money to be made in commodity production anymore. All commodity production has been streamlined to an obscene level. If you want to make money off commodity production, have fun with your like pop-up vintage clothing store or something, or commodity sales or whatever. The real money is on speculating on commodities. This is the reason why somehow billions of dollars move through construction firms. What gets built? No, I mean it. What gets built? You can go look at photos of New York from the 1930s and 40s and see what looks like a city being raised in years. Meanwhile, we have a housing crisis in every state in the fucking country, almost. And more money than ever is circulating in construction. Where is it going? It's a fucking Ponzi scheme. It's a complicated system that allows for the siphoning of wealth. It's just that over time they found out that by using fancy math tricks, they could do that more efficiently with speculation and quantitative easing and fractional banking and so on than they could ever do it by just charging people more for cars or whatever. New York wasn't built with real money either. It was huge amounts of debt. First of all, being in debt doesn't necessarily mean the money isn't real. You're conflating two things. Second of all, wow, nice to see that debt was used to actually build something, as opposed to nowadays when corporations accrue billions in debt so that they can lend it out themselves or invest it. I mean, fuck, at least there the debt was building something. You borrow money, build a road. Now it's borrow money to lend the money so the person lended to can invest it and make 0.1% more than they're paying in the interest in the loan, which is why everyone wants fucking Powell to lower the interest rate. Now it's all shell companies selling to other shell companies and fucking financial bullshit mergers. Nothing's real anymore. They built New York and paid for it with the Great Depression? No, they didn't. The Great Depression was caused by reckless Wall Street behavior, not by construction. It's all finance. It's evil. It's all evil, dude. They kept building through the Great Depression because the Great Depression represented a financial collapse. The real world keeps a chugging, man. We've let so much of our economy get pulled up into this fake fucking math game. Where people like Warren Buffett, who become insanely wealthy, not by building or selling things, but by being good at having money. Wait, he sold insurance? That shit ain't real. Insurance is gambling. Buffett owns and sells businesses? Yeah, that's my point. He's good at moving money around. He didn't make his money by selling a product, right? Like Vivek. Fucking no one's out there. No one out there is making big fucking moolah off of like, well, for every widget sold, I get $1 of surplus value after I'm done paying my rent, electricity, and wages. That's not how anyone makes money anymore, okay? 3 ways of making money, okay? Bitcoin, OnlyFans, live streaming. And the OnlyFans live streaming divide grows blurrier every year. And I've been doing my crunches, so you might see me on there as a moonlighting gig eventually. But for right now, it's just the live streaming, and I'm pissed off about the first sector. What about drawing furry porn? Fuck, you're right. Anyway, thank you everyone for listening to me talk again about monetary policy. It's important. Just remember that when this all falls apart soon, just remember the Republicans cemented it, but this is a bipartisan thing. The transferring of wealth into the fake economy, the refusal to go after tax havens or tax wealthy people, the capitulation to corporatist interests, that's across the board, honestly. Republicans are doing all of this faster and stupider, but this was inevitable. By the way, Warren Buffett's convinced a huge crash is coming. Yeah, and he knows his shit. Yeah. Unironically, third world countries might be better off because more of their economy is based on real production rather than finance. Why do you think China is the way it is? Why can China, for $5, build a national high-speed rail system? And in America, we spent $13 billion to politely ask a bunch of Californian farmers whether or not they would politely consider, you know, allowing one single rail to be built on 1/4% of their property. The world economy has moved to financial capitalism. Yeah, but as a percentage, I'd be willing to bet that America probably siphons more into the financial market. It's like London, Hong Kong, New York. I mean, there are a few like real financial centers in the world where you have the like monstrous reallocation of wealth taking place. Singapore, thank you. Yeah. Funnily enough, this is actually one of the reasons why Russia has been able to survive the economic hole they've been in for so long. A lot of Russia's wealth is literally just them having cash. You know, it's like Russia, Norway, and Saudi Arabia all do the same thing in that because they've sold so much stuff, because they're selling a thing, you sell it for money, you get the money, you just hold on to the money.
IRS direct file program, which directly contradicts.
Okay, I've muted the autoplay, but I don't know where it's from. What was that? That was from Twitter? Man, Elon like genuinely broke the site. That was this Twitter tab. That was this Twitter tab. It was here on my first monitor. I didn't touch anything. I didn't even click. It just started playing. What the hell? Yeah, just decided to restart. Okay, let me close that along with all these tabs. Yeah, Grok, can you explain this, please? Fucking... Anyway, what was I saying? What was I saying? Russia cash. Oh, yeah, one of the reasons Russia's been able to survive so long is because a lot of their wealth has been held in actual, literal, real wealth, right? Like, Russia just had money. Like, the U.S. government doesn't have money. It accrues debt, right? Saudi Arabia has the same thing. Norway. We need to go back to that, man. We need to go back to mercantilism. We don't need to go back to mercantilism. It is crazy, though, that, like, it's considered strange for a government to have a savings account. I'm not saying it has to be all the money in the world. They should spend a lot of it back on society. But it is kind of crazy that the only mechanism the government has for raising the money that it needs to spend for its budget is by selling treasury bonds. Like like there's really no, like there can't be like any like surplus, any buffer a little bit. You know, like just a little bit. Like I'm not asking for much here. I just feel like it's kind of crazy that the modern economy is literally universally reliant on debt at every level. I know it's complicated. I understand, and because they create the currency, there's also an incentive for them to create, destroy. But like, it's basically all wealth should be in doubloons. And on tax day, the government should have a big pile of doubloons that it brings in, and then when the social programs are paid out, paid out for, the doubloons go out again. And that's how it should work, in my opinion. No, a surplus is wasteful, as if you spend it, the ROI can be higher as investment. No, I'm anti-investment. You don't understand. No, that's the fucking logic. Well, wouldn't it, if the interest rate on the debt you get is lower than the ROI on your investment, then shouldn't you just infinitely spiral into debt? That's what we're trying to prevent. Yeah, you're in the box, dude. You're like, well, shouldn't, that's just wasted money then. No, it's real money. Ah, man. The government shouldn't be investing in shit, dude. It's the government. They make the currency. They should just have some of it themselves. Cities have been proof of this on a microeconomic scale. Yeah, but then people will be like, well, cities don't create their own currency, which is true, and I acknowledge that it's complicated, but I'm advocating for a kind of like radical Luddite approach towards monetary policy. It hasn't destroyed Norway to hold a national fund, you know? It hasn't destroyed Saudi Arabia. It hasn't destroyed, you know, Russia. I mean, certainly Russia's not in a great place, but it's not because they've had, a reserve. If the government doesn't take out debt, where would the money come from? Literally prints the money. Would you say all banks should be owned by the government? Okay, can we all agree on that one at least? That to me is an easy one, for sure. Yeah, private banking as a system, literally, like, there's no reason that should exist at all. None of that fractional bullshit. If you're loaning out money, it should be money that exists, that has been produced. Anyway. Should the stock market exist? Fuck no, dude. They're the reason we keep getting into this fucking mess. You know, we had investment and, like, building stuff as a concept before the stock market, right? I just... When, how? Are you... I'm sorry. Just out of curiosity, are you sincerely asking me how investment could have happened before the stock market? You have gold, and you come across a man who says, I would like your gold, and I will use it to build a foundry that I will then sell products from, and I will return your investment plus a small amount. The stock market is a very modern... Most trade was done with tally sticks, not gold. You people won't be satisfied by anything. Just you wait. It's been a week since I started reading monetary policy. By week 2, you fuckers are going to be getting lapped by me. Lapped! Rome had banking, loans, investment, corporate entities, etc. Yeah, I mean, none of those things, like, require the existence of a stock market. It's speculation, man. It's fucking evil. Well, certain kinds of speculation. What if we return to the gold standard? I don't actually think the gold standard is the issue here. I think the gold standard is actually really bad. Because you want the Federal Reserve to have a lot of control over how much currency is being printed and how much currency is being destroyed through taxation. You want the Federal Reserve to be able to, like, expand to have a handle on inflation, right? You don't want to, like, arbitrarily go like, well, no, actually we're entering a deflationary period because all the, like, finite currency that we're spreading out is being, like, you know, like a greater economy, more people, more business. And then once you have, like, a deflationary currency, you incentivize, you know, saving rather than spending, which is bad. You don't want that. Honestly, like, I know it's kind of like a meme, but I feel like there's some validity in the whole labor voucher thing. Maybe all money should be dollar bills that catch on fire exactly 1 year after they're minted. And then that way everyone's playing hot potato. They're like, fuck saving. Oh, the government's taxing my money? Whatever, it's gonna burn to crisp in like 2 days anyway. You know, I maybe that's the way to go. Money needs to blow up like the tapes they used to talk to Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. When new Roman emperors came to power and they changed the value of money, they legally mandated all people hand in their old money or you'd be executed. I think we should do that. I'm 100% in on that specific policy. You see the no tax on tips is most likely going to make tip earners make less, Lamau. No, I didn't see that. No tax on tips bracket. What's the info there? The Senate unanimously passed it? Are you kidding me? Isn't our tax system complicated enough? Do you really want to have everyone itemizing every fucking tip they receive? That's the on paper implication of this. Like, rather than just having your W-2, your payouts or whatever, your withholdings, now it's like, oh, well, no, actually, every single individual tip and tip payout, you have like this form you have to fill out. What the fuck? Just lower people's taxes, man. The bill specifically allows you to not itemize your taxes and get this deduction. They're calculated together in a 1099. Does a 1099 already differentiate? Wait, how would the IRS ever be able to validate that? They can't really? Okay, fuck it. Look forward to every single person in the relevant bracket making exactly $25,000 a year in tips. Every single small business is going to change everything they charge as 1% price and an optional 99% tip. Absolutely insane amounts of fraud are about to happen. This is so fucking stupid. In 2023, there were roughly 4 million U.S. workers in tipped occupations, representing 2.5% of all employment, narrow subset of the workforce. What's more, a good chunk of tipped workers are part-time employees, and they wouldn't see a significant benefit from a tip exception. Many such workers already don't pay federal income tax because they fall below the standard deduction. Nice, yeah. Of course, it's a tax deduction. A lot of these people already don't pay taxes. Wait, are chat donations classified as tips? You'll get a huge tax break? Only up to 25,000, but also, like, yeah, they definitely are. When are you going to start saying time to read tips? Honestly? That's a good bit. It's such a low IQ, fake populist fucking tax exemption. Like, we're spiraling towards insolvency. People are clapping like seals. Bipartisan Democrats and Republicans are like, yeah, man, let's add this like weird, unnecessary exception that sounds really good, won't affect most people who could otherwise benefit from it. Also, we're cutting Medicaid and Medicare and everything. Also, like, the world will be getting immeasurably worse, in part due to us inevitably defaulting and collapsing the global economy. But let's contribute to that, if possible, with this meaningless virtue signal. Like, the average person who might otherwise be able to benefit from this doesn't have enough tax knowledge to even... They don't do the math. The average person is barely literate. They're not... Our tax system is so complicated. It should literally be the IRS just tells you what you owe. And they could do that. Other countries do that. Now you can't even, you're not even going to be able to fucking do a free file because the Republicans are deciding that's anti-American or something. Do you prepare your own taxes? Yeah, I do my own taxes. A lot of content creators do, because there's a lot of like if you go to a person who does tax preparation, like H&R Block, or you have your own accountant or whatever, and you're like, so listen, okay, I'm a live streamer, so let me like explain this to you. It's just a fucking waste of time. Like, in the length of time that it would take to do that, you could just file your taxes. Do you do accounting? Absolutely not. What are you talking about? This isn't an LLC. If it was an LLC, I would have an accountant. It really is the end times, man. Boy. Supreme Court has voted 6-3 to allow Trump to fire, for now, the heads of the NLRB and Merit Systems Protection Board, both independent agencies. Yeah, sure, whatever. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Whatever. What's your recommendation on pants to avoid crotch blowout? Not crap pants, I suppose. Don't wear anything with stretch fabric. Wear something with strong seam construction. You want your seams to look like this, okay? You want a nice solid double stitch, you know, like a nice stitch down. You want nice, heavy, overlapping seams. Not sweats. Enough people go outside wearing sweats. They're cutting junk food from food stamps.
The second thing is that you mentioned, sir, in your remarks that we are on track to sign multiples of SNAP waivers to get junk food and sugary drinks out of our food stamp system. And I am so proud. I am so proud to announce that on Monday, I was in Nebraska with Governor Pillen, where we signed the first one. An hour ago, I signed the second one for Governor Braun in Indiana. He may not even know that. I've got it right here, sir. I also signed the third one, Governor Kim Reynolds of Iowa, about an hour ago. With a half a dozen more coming down the line. And sir, that has never happened before. Under Republican or Democrat administrations, we have never made that happen before. So I am so proud and so grateful for your leadership.
Morrissey here, who was the first one to apply from West Virginia.
Oh, Governor Morrissey.
Yay.
We will make sure you're at the top of the pile, sir. I apologize. Governor Sanders has been a leader. Governor Polis from Colorado. It has been remarkable how these governors have stood.
I've heard that buying fast food in the U.S. can be cheaper than buying the ingredients and cooking yourself. Sure, if you're making something like hamburgers or chicken nuggets or whatever, in terms of like raw ingredient, nutrient macros or whatever, you're always going to be better off buying from grocery stores. Whatever, no more snap for that. Just another blow against free choice in a long war fought by both Republicans and Democrats to villainize people who rely on government benefits, to suggest that their obesity or their their financial situation is a consequence of their irresponsibility. You know, you have fat fucks like Trump who eat McDonald's like they breathe air, but then, you know, the implication of this being like, well, now, if you're relying on government money, you should be eating real food. Except, of course, oftentimes, yes, fast food is quite cheap and effective way to get a quick meal. No hot food. Trump administration's illegally deporting Asian immigrants to South Sudan. Oh, we read about this. Oh no, they have deported them. Okay, sure. We read about them talking about it, not about them actually doing it. Sure, man. The two men are originally from Myanmar and Vietnam. Myanmar, Vietnam, South Sudan. Same thing. South Sudan, like, were they on the hunt for the most dangerous country on earth? The scariest thing is we don't even know where the fuck they're being kept. We might never find out, too. I mean, they could just be dead. Is Sudan okay with this? Sudan barely has a government. Who knows what warlord received them? Yes, Sudan and South Sudan are different countries. Ad loading. Well, none of that.
And finally, in other news, the Department of Homeland Security conducted a deportation flight from Texas to remove vicious illegal criminals in the United States. All of these individuals were sent, or are trying to be sent, to a third country. And President Trump...
I think this is an older video. The judge is looking for contempt charges for all the agents? Really? Okay, okay, okay. Rapid developments then, it seems. This is from not long ago. Trump administration holding migrants in Djibouti after judge blocks deporting them to South Sudan, president says. Please give me your video click. There was a video player. Thank you. Now audio, please.
Administration's deportation of 8 migrants, quote, unquestionably violates a court order blocking deportations to third countries without allowing detainees to contest their removal. The Department of Homeland Security did not confirm the whereabouts of the flight, which left from Texas Tuesday, but immigration lawyers say they were told it was headed for war-torn South Sudan. The State Department has issued a warning for Americans not to travel there due to violent crime, kidnapping, and armed conflict.
It's still a bit of an understatement. Like, there are lots of countries that are experiencing varying levels of civil unrest. I feel like you can be a little bit more pointed with South Sudan.
DHS officials say the 8 men were in the U.S. illegally and came from Cuba, Laos, Mexico, Myanmar, South Sudan, and Vietnam. A spokesperson defended the administration's decision to deport them Wednesday, claiming they're convicted criminals.
Every single one of them was convicted of a heinous crime: murder, rape, child rape, rape of a mentally and physically handicapped victim. While we are
gonna go ahead and guess that these deportees have probably not been subjected to a, rigorous criminal investigation. Just guessing that.
Fully compliant with the law and court orders, it is absolutely absurd for a district judge to try to dictate the foreign policy and national security of the United States of America.
District Judge Brian Murphy previously ruled the government must allow detainees to either consent to their removal or be given the chance to challenge it. Attorneys for the Justice Department say the judge's order was, quote, not specific enough, which led to a misunderstanding. For more.
What? Because he was like, don't send them to Libya, and they were like, oh, okay, South Sudan.
Let's bring in CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya Galvez. So, Camilo, the judge could order the Department of Homeland Security to conduct reasonable interviews with the migrants on the plane.
Yes.
What does that mean? And again, do we know the whereabouts of the plane?
It's a critical question, both of them. So what we do know is that Judge Murphy back in April said that the administration could not carry out third country deportations unless it provided detainees, one, notice of the destination country and also notice to their counsel and lawyers, but also, two, a chance to say, I am scared of going to this third country because I fear I could be persecuted or otherwise victimized in that country. And what
I still hate the way this is talked about. I understand we're kind of looking through the looking glass here, but it's like openly defying judicial rulings to send people to fucking South Sudan. Like, it's like, this is not like, oh, well, this is a violation of an order. And also, like, you're not supposed to send people to where they might be persecuted based on their identity. And it's like, man, you have, like, I wonder how long they talked about the Third Reich like this, right? Like, for as long as they could. I wonder at what point they were like, we should really change our tone. Was it when Poland was invaded? Tell me, when was the turning point? Austria, Sudetenland, what was the...
Judge Murphy is saying is that this flight that appeared to be on its way to South Sudan did violate this order because he said that these migrants were not given a meaningful and reasonable chance to make that contest and to fight their deportation. He said the migrants were put on this plane just 24 hours after being notified that they faced deportation to South Sudan and that they were never screened by asylum officers for any type of concern of being persecuted there. And now he suggested in this hearing today that he could very well order the administration to interview these migrants, maybe overseas.
Again, like it's the proceduralism that gets me. It's like, well, okay, the paperwork wasn't properly filed, therefore, like, a judge has ordered like an inspection of the conditions at Auschwitz-Birkenau. It's like, no, the tone isn't right. Jesus Christ. You said the judge is looking to hold them in contempt. The judge ordered ICE to tell everyone involved they may face criminal contempt. Is this going to be the first judge that's arrested for a ruling? We've had one judicial arrest so far for the crime of, like, there was an immigrant there who like went out the wrong door or something, but it wasn't technically for a ruling. Will this be the first judge that is arrested for a ruling? The stern remarks by the judge, Brian E. Murphy, came at a hastily called hearing in federal district court in Boston, where immigration lawyers said at least 2 migrants had been told they were going to be deported to the violence-plagued country in Africa. After a break in the proceedings to gather information, a lawyer for the Justice Department, Elianis N. Perez, said that one of the migrants, who is Burmese, was returned to Myanmar, not South Sudan. But she declined to say where the second migrant, a Vietnamese man, was deported, saying it was classified information. That means South Sudan. Judge Murphy asked what authority the government was using to classify the location of the deportation flight. I don't have the answer to that, she responded. Okay, so it's obviously not actually classified. They just don't want to admit. Yeah. The judge warned that officials involved in the deportations who were aware of his order, including potentially the pilots of the plane, could face criminal sanctions. Based on what I've been told, he said, this seems like it may be contempt. Okay, so this guy's getting disappeared. Brian E. Murphy. How is that classified? It's not. She's lying. Nothing more ominous, dude. You Google Brian E. Murphy, just this judge. I mean, who knows how long he's been practicing. Wikipedia article updated 17 hours ago. Fucking monka-ass shit right there, dude. It's like, the eyes are on him. On May 21st, he ruled Homeland Security unquestionably violated his order when it gave 8 men only hours of notice before deporting them to a third country. But in this, they're only talking about 2 people. 2 or 8? Who knows? It's not like the administration's keeping track of anyone. Oh, he actually only assumed office less than a year ago. Okay. Appointed by Joe Biden. Ooh, they're going to use that against him. A Joe Biden appointee who assumed office after the election. They're gonna use that against him. For sure. Well, shit. So where does it say they're being held in Djibouti? I know. Okay. Holding migrants in Djibouti. What about the one who's allegedly been sent over to Myanmar? This is slop. Oof, that was a rough op-ed, lol. Yeah, that one was, I was trying to glean that one. That was a tough one. Shit. Okay, fuck. Well, this is a developing story then. Yeah, okay. Well, now we're knowledgeable on this one. By the way, like, more judges should be testing the limits and pushing for contempt here. Okay? The Department of Homeland Security is, in many instances, objectively acting in contempt, open defiance of the judge's orders. Like, there's absolutely no question to that. The longer you let them get away with it, the harder it's going to be to crack down on them when you finally summon the muster to. You know? You're letting them get away with so much.
Trump administration must keep a group of migrants in U.S. custody after they were reportedly removed from the country and sent to South Sudan. His reasoning for that, in case he decides their removals were unlawful.
Misspoke.
He now says U.S. officials must appear in court today to not only identify the migrants, but to provide information on their whereabouts. Government officials reacted to that earlier today. Here's what they had to say.
Now, a local judge in Massachusetts is trying to force the United States to bring back these uniquely barbaric monsters who present a clear and present threat to the safety of the American people and American victims. While we are...
Have I seen this woman before? I vaguely remember seeing a woman who looks and sounds like she's 16 speaking on behalf of the DHS. Besides today, yeah. She was on Fox News or something. I think I remember that, yeah.
We're fully compliant with the law and court orders. It is absolutely absurd for a district judge to try to dictate the foreign policy and national security of the United States of America. These are the monsters that the district judge is trying to protect. The contrast is brutally stark. President Trump...
You called her a Nazi, I remember that. Anyone that age working in the Department of Homeland Security is, and I'm being sincere here, without a doubt, a Nazi. Death camps, Holocaust, Sonengrad, the whole 9 yards, 100%. No shot otherwise.
Trump and Secretary Noem are working every single day to get these vicious criminals off of American streets. And while activist judges are on the other side fighting to get them back onto United States soil.
CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Sganga was inside that press conference, and she joins us now. Nicole, what is the...
Why are they being sent to South Sudan? Presumably because South Sudan is so weak and war-mired that they're not really capable of, A, resisting U.S. planes dropping people off there, and B, the people could be effectively disappeared there. Like, keep in mind, they're being deported there. They're not serving sentences there. So the idea, essentially, is that you just get taken off the runway, and then you're just there in South Sudan. So yeah, good luck with that. It is essentially a death sentence. The goal here is to disappear people. You might as well be sending them to a deserted island. Terrifying. The lawyers said they also received an email from a woman who said she believed her husband, a man from Vietnam, had been deported to South Sudan. Just the guessing game these families have to play. Like, oh, which fucking war zone has my family been sent off to? So Trump is outsourcing Siberia? Basically. We don't really have a Siberia in America. You have to be far away from cameras. That's kind of the whole point. You have to be far away not only literally, but you also have to be removed from prying eyes. Yeah, that's why we have Gitmo. Alaska? Well, Alaska? True, but if you send a bunch of immigrants over to Alaska and let them off there, what's going to happen, right? 1 million citizen journalists are going to follow over and just immediately, like, house them, right? Siberia isn't just far away. It's like physically, it's far away. It's like an impermeable barrier, right? In the 1930s and 40s, yeah. Jesus. What are the countries we're sending these people to get out of this? It's South Sudan. If we gave them like $5, it might be nothing. It could be nothing. Like, what's the... It's South Sudan. What are they going to do? Shoot down a U.S. government airplane? For one, with what anti-air, you know? It's just... Well, that's enough for me for today. This shit's depressing. Particularly bleak stream today. Yerp. We're losing our economy and our First Amendment. Yeah, another day in the torment nexus. Read the tips. Tips, tips, tips. Time to read the tips. Shredgeword, thank you for the tier 2 sub. Really appreciate that. Doing this while muted and offline chat, Lel. Best thing to do when you're otherwise preoccupied. Give me a tip. Jizor and Annie. Thank you for the tier 1 subs both. Iron Pond, thank you for the $5. I have not played Warhammer Rogue Trader. No, I'm afraid not. Narmer, thank you for the very kind $10. Albert Einstein wrote the theory of relativity at a high school grad level because he wanted to inspire the next generation. It's a fun and not too difficult read. Well, I think the difficulty with the theory of relativity would probably be the subject material, not the way it's written, right? Because there is a difference. Can't say I've ever read it. That is cool of him, though. He's a cool guy. Bide-Eye, thank you for the $5.69. Do you think audiobooks might increase or decrease reading comprehension? I think that audiobooks are better than no books, but I do think that if a person is reading a book and they don't understand a passage or a word, they might look it up. But if a person is listening to an audiobook and they don't get a passage, you're going to be like, okay, well, I'm still listening. Like, you can't really, like, okay, pause. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, rewind. Da-da-da. Like, people aren't going to do that as much. Wrong, I stop and look up whatever. Right, actually, because I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about people. Dick Thulu, thank you for the tier 2 sub. The literacy problem is scary. No wonder young leftists either don't read theory or can't understand it. Yeah, well, and to think those are by far the most literate people of that age group, you know? Jazz Dog, thank you for the $5. Give me a reading assignment on Baldur's Gate 3 lore, and I'll describe in detail the shape and size of each of Gale's ass hairs. My least favorite companion. Well, that's not true. My least favorite definitely is Will. Definitely Will. Such a snoozer every time he talks, man. Steel Radiance and Kowalski, thank you for the $5 both. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Please yell. Bourgeois, you fucking dipshit. I'm not. No, I'm not. You can't give me fucking play instructions. You piece of shit. Yes, Dickens is not bourgeois. That was a silly thing for that person to say. Yeah. In the post-economic collapse, the Vosh fans will have great durable apparel. Yep. Never been a better time to invest in canvas and denim. SamFan155, thank you for the very kind $20. Dark Day for America, yikes. Let me call my buddy OK and introduce him to Crazy. I don't know how to respond to that. Sorry, I was trying to think of a good par on it, but I don't think I got it. I don't think I got it. I got the tip. I don't know if I got it though. Never wasted, Kowalski. Never wasted. Jakey Fakey, thank you for the $5. Other day, my girlfriend and I went to Edison High, New Jersey to protest a BOE abolishing of a pro-trans policy, but we lost 6-3 rip. Yeesh. And with the additional $5, it's the video for you being there. Oh, well, hey, listen. Maybe it didn't work out, but I still think it was real good of you to show up and speak. Absolutely. We need more people doing that. You know, a lot of people just get upset when local politics turns to shit. They never actually show up. 6 hours. Ugh. Bethany Gabagool, thank you for the $18. I'm Jewish and I'm afraid that Zionist condemnation of all anti-Israel discourse as anti-Semitic will inevitably drive more people towards anti-Semitism and violence. Oh God, absolutely, yeah. And they know that too, because that's their goal. It's the exact same thing that Osama bin Laden wanted. Osama bin Laden thought that Arabs were cucked out to the West, and one of his goals in doing 9/11 was to polarize the West against Muslims, thus treating Muslims worse, thus furthering Muslims' polarization against the West, and, you know, breaking up the relations. And to a large extent, he was, you know, successful in that. It worked pretty goddamn well, yeah. The Middle East is still a teetering shithole. He would not be happy with Trump's recent visit to the Gulf states, though, I'll tell you that much. Anyway, no, what Zionists do is very much the same. Like, the most aggressive Zionists in America are hardcore Republican Christian Zionists, and they get along with Nazis pretty goddamn well. They don't give a shit. That one, no one, and Victorious, thank you for the $2. Your shirt is too small. No, it's not. See? Move around just fine. Just wearing it open. You goofball. Max Grable, thanks the 5 CHF. Really appreciate that. I appreciate your deflationary currency very much. TriPie, thank you for the $5. Happy to hear it. Diego B and Ghost of Avalon, thank you both for the $5 tips. If you want to know how bad it is, they skipped me for a grade for the simple fact that I didn't like class I was out. And I had good grades. Nice. No standards anymore, I'm afraid. Tajirai, thank you for the $10. There's a fun idea. Set up an array of benefits that only apply if you illegally re-elect the horrible dictator. They've been doing that for a while. The timed, like, fall off of the like tax breaks, for example, or funding for certain programs. Politicians love doing stuff like that to ensure their legacy or to like force people into a recurring discourse over their you know, over their policy. You promised yesterday. No, I remember. H-Shelf, thank you for the $5. Quise, or Quise, perhaps. Thank you for the $10. I'm so glad I found you recently after your coverage on Hassan's run-in with the feds. I've been binging your content ever since. Are there any more popular, intellectually inclined leftists? Well, first of all, thank you very much. And second of all, yeah, there are, but I don't really get along that well with other people in this space. So I'm not a good like reference book, you know, for other lefties on YouTube. I think. Riverboat Jack. Yeah, well, I know people. I'm trying to think of a way to frame it rather than just regurgitating a bunch of stuff. Piece of shit. I stand by the recommendations here, though. You know, I think that if anything, my fans would probably know better than me. I don't really watch other live streamers, so as much as I like Riverboat Jack, for example, as a person, or Sam Cedar, you know, in the limited capacity which I watch him, I don't often watch that stuff. When I watch political content on my own, it's usually video essays, you know. What's the name of that channel? Oil Town? Coal something? It's the fellow with the facial hair. He's like, I've got a climate science degree. More Perfect Union's very good. Is it Climate Town? Climate, is that it? Climate Town? Okay, Climate Town. Gotcha. Okay. Anyway, Jamil and Nathan E, thank you for the $2 both. You can paper file, it's free, forms at library. Nice. And Islam forbids interest. Yeah, but they still got it, don't they? The religion doesn't matter. The material incentive of capitalism has made societies which otherwise would not have cared for interest do interest. Right? Like Nazis blame Jews for usury. Who's doing usury? Everyone's doing usury. Literally the entire economy. No joke, the entire global economy is built on it. Christians wanted it, so they were like, okay, let's do a loop. Let's do like a what do they call it? Loophole. You know, we'll have Jewish people preside over it. But the Christians were the ones doing it. Like they just had they wanted the system. They just didn't want to take responsibility for it morally. But it's all bullshit. No one believes in any of this crap anyway. So you invent Islamic banking, and the Christians all just did their own banking eventually anyway. Call sign Rogue, thank you for the $10. I suppose the only question now is how long it would take the world to recover, assuming it even can. I don't know, but I do think that if the American economic collapse, the default of the American debt would require a fundamental change to the global economic order. It wouldn't just be like the Great Depression, where the Great Depression was like really bad, but fundamentally everyone kind of picked themselves up back after it, right? Because the Great Depression was caused in large part by like speculation and Wall Street bullshit, but it was and poor regulation, but it was caused by like things that can be regulated, right? But what we're looking at now, which is like we're looking at like the very concept of, I mean, we're looking at like the fundamentals, I guess, of fractional reserve banking and there being a global currency at all, global reserve currency, stuff like that. You know, I'm sorry, I'm tired. I'm not. The problems might be a little more fundamental. I remember an economics professor of mine from university saying that economists generally like post-apocalyptic fiction because the big issues they face will be gone. That's cute. I like that. Anyway, call sign Rogue, thanks for the $10 tip. The government's job is not to prop up the economy. It is to regulate the economy and manage various social programs and services. Actually, I'm fine with the government propping up the economy. I just think that the economy shouldn't be a gigantic speculative bubble of debt and interest that it like prints money to like stimulate more speculation from the private sector, right? I think that propping up the economy should mean that the government and the Federal Reserve or whatever take steps to ensure like continuous high velocity flow of currency, make sure that, because that is the economy. Not ever. Pans, thanks to $5. Maybe kids today just need to read Homestuck. True. Also, I love your shorts. Can you tell us more about your shorts? They're the, I don't know if they sell them anymore, actually. The Fatigue Mountain or possibly Camp shorts. The non-drawstring shorts from Imogene and Willie. I do like them, though. I think they're quite handsome. Endeavors D&B and Gibber Puff, thank you for the $2 both. Just the tip, is it taxed? Shouldn't be. Inconsequential, thank you for the $5. I'm quite fond of you. Love the main character. Yeah, I appreciate that. Can we see the back? Nice try. It looks like they'd split my sack with how high those are. No, I've got plenty of sack room. They're just a little higher waisted. John with the $5. The Jesuits were created to be Catholic bankers, so the church had Jews to charge interest instead of Catholics. It's just such a stupid workaround when it's like, you know, nobody... Oh, they do still sell them. Nice. Nobody's going to work around, like nobody's going to ignore the material reality, the incentives of capitalism just because their fucking book tells them not to. Again, look at the Muslims with their Islamic banking, right? You know, they just find a way around it. It's not real. I don't know. Sorry, I'm feeling a little bit, I won't lie, a little burnt from the subject matter this fine stream. It's been a rough stream. It's been a rough one. It's a bleak stream, man. Yeah, it's probably going to get worse, too. Well. Hardest job. You know it. And whenever I'm feeling down, at least, if nothing else, I have the knowledge. I know that you guys know that this is, in fact, the hardest job. And it means a lot that you know that. Please don't ban me again, but you said I need to grow, but I'm not joking when I say I like both your content and Nick Fuentes' thanks. Well, you know what they say about personal growth, right? It's a lifelong process. Bro, how? Yeah, he just likes watching gay streamers. I'll be trans Julie Roberts, you be Rupert Everett. Rupert Everett. Why am I blanking on that? Oh, that fella. Okay, there we go. Took me a sec. Jesus, you people. Gotta recuff my sleeve. It keeps undoing on that side. That's fine, Nuts. Oh, and C. Marina, thank you for the $2. Okay, sorry. I was blanking on what I needed to do. Okay, I read that. And I read this. I did not read this. Okay. Matt Villanelle, thank you for the 5 Canadian. I started receding and thinning in my early 20s, reversed it completely, thank God for HRT, trans woman. Ah. It's actually gotten a lot easier to deal with receding hair, right? Everyone's going over to Turkey for those cheap hair transplants that work really well now. Also, apparently Rogaine works pretty well. I don't know. Asikar Tiran, thank you for the $10. My hairline started receding in high school. Had to start shaving my head before 25. Justin Bieber's doing pretty good if he's only starting now. Yeah, honestly. It's unrealistic male beauty standards, I'm telling you. Still alive, thanks for the $2. Kamika Kalimuthu, thank you for the 15 currency from Myanmar. Every time I donated to you, you always got confused on the currency. It's the Malaysian ringgit. Also, chat is weird about my currency when I donate. Meanies. Okay, listen. And I will say this, okay? It is inexcusable to be weird about other cultures. It is excusable to find them funny, like Djibouti. The difference between weird and funny is a critical one, but a lot of people fuck it up, okay? So I want to be clear. I will forget what your currency is called. I already have. But I have nothing but love and respect for you and your culture. Okay? That's what's important. Because people will be, and this is why, by the way, this is why you can do accents for some groups, but not accents for other groups. So if you want to do German accent or something, I don't know, like this, like everyone's like, oh, well, you can do that. In fact, I would say that it was so inoffensive in large part because it was bad. That's Austrian. I don't care. I don't care. But you can do that, right? You can do a Russian accent. Yeah, that wasn't even close. It's not the my accents aren't the point. The point is, but if you do an Indian accent, then people are like, what are you on about? And in my opinion, if your heart is pure, you can do all of them. You can do a Chinese accent. You can do a black accent even, though your heart has to be very pure. Now, the problem is that no one can actually see your heart except for you. Only you can know your heart. right? So you can do it, but other people are going to assume. And these assumptions are not unwarranted because the vast majority of people who are white, who are doing a black scent, are in fact being weird about it. And they are not pure of heart. You understand? So you, in a practical sense, right? You shouldn't do it because people aren't, like, no one would ever assume, like, oh, this guy must just have the purest heart. You know? But I do think that the purity counts. And it's because nobody assumes offense when you talk about, like, the German or the Russian accent, right? My heart is so pure, I swear. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Anyway, thank you, Kamika. Max Grable, thank you for the 20 CHF, another currency I don't remember. Greetings from Zurich. Fuck, I should remember where that's from. Switzerland. Hey, can I, like, buy some of your treasury bonds? Greetings from Zurich, and thank you, Trump, for the inflow of foreign capital. Oh, it seems other people have my idea. I'd like to remind everyone that Elon has a grotesque mushroom peen from a botched enlargement surgery. Revel in the delectable irony. Well, that's presumably why he does the IVF, right? If he actually did get, like, a dick surgery that went poorly, though, I need to know. Like, there needs to be an expose. You know? Still alive, thank you for the $2. And Terminal Sanity, thank you for the incredibly kind $10. I gave Musk 4 months before he would be out with the Trump admin. Between being an insufferable goon, not staying in the background, and an incompetent clown that can't deliver, it was inevitable. Yeah, it seems like it was pretty much inevitable, especially with regard to, like, Tesla not doing that well. But I don't know if he'll be able to recover from this, like, in terms of his brand image, right? I mean, he made himself so publicly stupid. There's not really any plausible deniability. I do miss saying do the jump, Elon. I do miss that. Jump now? No. You like this belt? So this shirt obviously fucking rules, okay? It's got like a beautiful fade to it. I really like this belt. It's so solid. It's got like a... Actually, I don't own many belts. Can I have it? No. Sorry, I just need to lay down for a bit. All right, take care, guys. I'll be here tomorrow. You know the drill. Take care, and Sino-Iranian century. Hey, listen, okay, we'll have to see whether we get those U.S.-Israel strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities before we can make that determination, okay? I don't think America is going to bomb China. Chance it happens with Iran. Take care. See you guys tomorrow. All eyes on Hassan, okay? Listen, if they fucking arrest him. They arrest him for the crime of saying free Palestine, man. I'm packing my bags. Jesus. All right, take care.